Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a very good morning to all of you. We are delighted to welcome you all here today. I am Tina Gurnani. I lead public relations for ONDC and I will be your host today on behalf of ONDC. Today's event marks the beginning of an unbundled, interoperable, and democratic future of financial services. As we move along through the event, you will learn about the hows and whys of financial services play on the network. Should you have any questions about the subject, I would request you to please take it up in our dedicated Q&A session towards the end of this event. Now, before we begin for good, I would like to cover a few points. We would appreciate it if you could please keep your phones on silent mode to avoid any interruptions during the event. Please take note of the exits for your safety in case of an emergency. And lastly, we encourage you to share your experiences on social media using the hashtag ONDC Financial Launch. Moving ahead, ONDC, as some of you might know, is a not for profit organization dedicated to the mission of leveling the playing field for all sellers, bringing utmost convenience and choice to buyers, and ultimately opening up doors of opportunity for every Indian and the world. I would now request you to look towards the screen as we now present to you ONDC's very first brand film.
भारत खुलेगा।
हाँ भी राजू, ये मूंग दाल हल्दी मिर्ची पैक हुआ क्या?
हाँ जी हो गया।
अब तो पूरे शहर में डिलीवरी कर रहे हो।
ओएनडीसी के साथ छोटे से मोहल्ले में शहर का सबसे बड़ा सुपर स्टोर खुलेगा।
ये रहा, रोको।
सड़क किनारे बनते दियों के लिए बड़े बड़े बंगलों का दरवाजा खुलेगा।
ये भी बहुत अच्छा।
खुलेगा।
ये मैं और ये मेरे पापा। मेरे पापा ना बचपन में मेरे लिए कल्लू की बताशे लाते थे।
तो फिर आप मेरे लिए भी लेके आओ।
अभी मंगवाता हूँ।
मिठाई की दुकानों के साथ साथ बचपन की यादों का झरोका खुलेगा।
खुलेगा। दिल खोल दो, खुलेगा।
अलीगढ़ का ताला पंजिम पटियाला चेन्नई के हाथों से खुलेगा।
कुल्फी खाने का मन कर रहा।
इस टाइम चलिए साथ में करते हैं।
चाहे मंगवानी हो काम की चीज या कुछ भी चटर पटर, काका काकी के लिए किसी भी टाइम हर दुकान हर शटर आसानी से खुलेगा। इस ओपन नेटवर्क के साथ मिस सपना के सपने खुलेंगे। मिसेस श्रीनिवासन की सोच खुलेगी। मिस्टर एंड मिसेस कपूर का आने वाला कल खुलेगा। मांझी शाह के अचार की तारीफ में पूरे देश का मुंह खुलेगा। मिश्रा जी की टैक्सी का दरवाजा सनी, बनी, हनी, टोनी के साथ साथ टूरिस्ट्स, हनीमूनर्स, सीईओज सब के लिए खुलेगा। खुशियां खुलेंगी, तरक्की खुलेगी, आशाएं खुलेंगी, ख्वाहिशें खुलेंगी, आसानी खुलेगी। जब ओएनडीसी नेटवर्क पर हर तरह के बिजनेस के लिए भारत खुलेगा तो करोड़ों कस्टमर्स और दुकानदारों के लिए बेचने और खरीदने का नया तरीका खुलेगा। ओएनडीसी नेटवर्क पर अब हर बिजनेस के लिए भारत
खुलेगा।
Once again, I would like trees, investors, board of directors, media guests, and network participants. We are happy to have you all with us here today. And now, to officially commence our event, I would like to invite Mr. T. Koshi, Managing Director and CEO at ONDC, to deliver the inaugural address and share the vision of financial services on Open Network. Please join me in welcoming him to the stage.
Good morning and welcome. I'm truly excited to see such a large gathering today from our and network participants who are already onboarded, many who are on the way to being onboarded, and also the financial sector community today here. And we are also proud to have our, esteemed board members like Adil, Suresh, Nitin, and of course Sujit from from the very brain. The whole idea of an open community took shape few years ago, who developed the beacon protocol as an idea with his team. And we have Mahesh from the A, which is one of the critical component in this whole integration of various pieces together to get seamless service to the consumers and the service providers. I know today focus is on the financial services launch. We have all the experts coming. So as a context setting, I like to, as usual, talk the big picture and try to see the connect. You saw the video that was being played a little earlier. What is a theme? The theme was saying two things. It is a theme of opening up of the digital commerce in India and maybe eventually leading a transformation globally. So what do we mean by opening up and democratization? What is its relevance and how does it get nicely integrated with the whole idea of financial services? Today, what we are all familiar in the field of e-commerce is walled gardens. There'll be some domain, let's say consumer products. There are two large ones, couple of medium ones, and the rest are small. Practically concentration. You would see that in the food, you are seeing the mobility, you are seeing travel everywhere. Because the whole idea of a platform was to have proprietary protocol to create closed network, which gave its the network effect to make sure that it would give enormous power to few enterprises, which is one model. But that is not a natural way in which the business is going. Business or industry or economy or humanity goes through open network, through continuous innovation and destruction. Innovation of new ideas, new combination, infinite way in which things combine together to bring, to sort of bring out beauty. And that's a nature's rule. But when it comes to digital commerce, the nature's rule doesn't apply. When there are only few large enterprises, every innovation and everything is focused only on few. It means that if you are a merchant, you have to choose which is the close group you want to be, or you want to be in multiple groups. Each of them add to the cost, all leading to network concentration. So the whole idea, so that is one strategy. I'm not taking a value proposition on that. But my point here is that in an open network, it gives big and small equal opportunity to compete based on how good they are, what are they offering, how relevant is their offering, how often do they innovate, how do they specialize to keep the cost most competitive. Not that everybody should make loss, the people should make profit, but it should not be rent seeking. It should be value addition and appropriate pricing. That's the whole idea. So in an open network, what happens is uh, the, the the protocol enable different building blocks to be stitched together. So what's a big deal for a merchant? Merchant can say that, hey, I have this product. This is my catalog, and the catalog is now visible to the whole world using this protocol. I don't need to do multiple integration. One integration, beautiful, done. And there will be somebody who says that I'm focusing on the demand side. I have a sort of client base because I am a fintech company, because I have now fintech like payment customers, or I am a media company. I have the people who come to read my stuff or see my stuff, or I might be a gaming company. People come to play games. Or I might be a spirituality company. People may come to sort of book an e-puja. Anything is possible because these are all services being offered. Today, they are all, the buy sides are very focused. Say that, I will focus on one related service because I have the additional headache to go and tie up the supply side. So a guy who is good in So managing the demand and supply for ride hailing may not be the best one to manage the supply for, let's say, food, because the kind of people they deal with are different, the operational challenges are different. Now that that has changed. If I believe that my ride hailing clients would need to can be offered food and fashion, and I can bring some smart AI on top of it to sort of curate the best for my kind of clientele, I'm in business, because supply is being brought in the network. And what comes in when it comes to supply and demand, it's not just about B2C, it's about somebody giving, some buyer giving in. And there could be complementary service. I'll just give one example. I just want to bring all these things in the context of the larger financial services story we are talking about. Imagine I'm a small restaurant today. And if I want to, I'm very good at making very specialty Chinese food, great. I can tell people that I can make Chinese food, but that's all I'm good at. But if I'm, let's say, in Worli, and if I need to supply it to the whole of Bombay, I need to have some connection with logistics, I need to have so many chotos with me, which is not easy. And since I'm only a lone, small one specialty restaurateur, even many of the local logistics company will not want to integrate directly with me. So what's my option? Either I pay a high price for my logistics, or I become part of the large platform where they have a very competitive way of offering. That's the only way in the platform-centric world to survive. But network gives a different opportunity. I'm just taking this an example because that's something that we proved in the last 2 months. So one of the logistics company, Ola, they came and said, I'm starting a logistics and I'm not going to do deals with any of the suppliers. I'm just going to offer my service to the network as an open service. So I'm assuming that the whole network is going to use me. So I don't need separate integration, one with Domino, one with Rebel, one with this Chotu, Gupta stores. I mean, I don't need to handle anything. I just make my catalog visible in the network using this protocol. Whether you are a Gupta store, a small Chotu single restaurant place, or you are Domino's, you have the same access. There's no separate integration needed. And then I make an offer to the network, not to individual. And it also handles a lot of, it saves me a lot of effort. And the reason I'm telling this example, we just proved. In April, the network-wide logistics was handled maybe 100 orders maximum in a day. But when somebody offered this as a whole network service, it has gone to 50, 60,000 a day. And not just one, there are many coming. And this idea is being seen, complementary services being available as a service for the producers to stitch together and give it at a whole lot. A very efficient, so you can say that I can do a very efficient value, production of my Chinese food, stitch that with a very efficient services of logistics coming from somebody whom I contract with, and then make it as a combinatorial service to the end customer who doesn't need to know all these things. That is all possible only here. So the idea of an open network eventually is that every catalogable product or service should be available on the network using this protocol by itself. He doesn't have to go through multiple integration. He doesn't have to go to platform A, B, C because he wants to be visible to the whole buyer. Because the buyer side, the demand side is available as a whole uniform pool, being serviced by different buying application, not exclusive. So if I am a seller of a food, or I am a seller of clothes, if I am a seller of auto component, my buyers are all out there. I need to only show myself onto the network only once. Different kind of buying interfaces will come and stitch them together. And with the new technology like AI and ML coming, the buyers whose loyalty is only to the buyers will now add all this new technique to really curate what is best for me as a buyer, because they want my loyalty. And this is going to open up humongous opportunity to a large cross section of buyers and sellers. Now let's come to hard number. Today, if you look at, all of us are sitting here are very heavy users of e-commerce. Naturally so, because for existing players, we are the the privileged community who adopted this pretty fast. But we are a very small commodity, 6 to 7% on the buy side. And the kind of products that we need are essentially coming from a very small segment of relatively specialized product. So the participation, the merchants are 2, 3, 4%. So like one of my friends, Anjali, once referred, this segment, the avocado segment. No? The products, the surveys, the demand is to meet the avocado segment, and the supply is to meet the demands of the avocado segment. But that's not India. India is a lot diverse. So there could be some buying application focusing on you and me. There'll be some buying application focusing on the customer from a village where he is giving an assisted service buying experience like the old PCOs in the villages. He's running a assisted buying because he has an access to a ONDC buyer application, which is done with the front end interfaces to meet the requirement of the rural community, because that's their focus, and he can use that and help the villagers who may not even have access to digital tools to help them to buy the assisted buying. These are the possibilities coming galore. So when the participation increases, potential participation increases, one of the biggest challenge for the merchants is how do you run this business? Working capital become a big challenge. Trust and safety, risk management become a big challenge. How does he manage his saving become a big challenge? Because today, if you look at each of the element, if you look at credit, significant amount of the credit comes on the basis of the assets, the physical assets. And many of the small enterprises may not have that. What is now that if he is helped to and encouraged to participate in the digital world and allowed to survive there, a lot of data get generated in his control without anybody asking for a premium to access that data, to say that, okay, this is now your asset which can form the basis of your working capital loan. Now that you are establishing yourself a credibility and a rating in the network, it is possible that you will start getting a score based on how he's behaving as a responsible player in the network. Probably some rating companies now started coming and adding on top of it financial information and creating a broader score for the merchants. These are all possibilities on a network world. And now that becomes a much more powerful asset for the lenders to sort of treat their clients. These things become heavenly possible. So we are talking about a transformation. So the whole network, if they are all interlinked and intertwined, it becomes possible. Similarly, imagine that I'm a small seller coming from Bandra selling to somewhere in Delhi. For a small seller, if sometime an accident happened in logistics and the product get destroyed, the client will say, I paid for it, I need it, it's your problem, it's not that I didn't arrange for logistics. The impact for a small seller or a small FPO could be high. Imagine that he can work on a sachetized insurance to protect that. Today, many of the saving instruments like mutual funds, etc., unless there is a minimum size, it cannot be serviced by the current distribution channel because it's not worthwhile. Imagine that the network enable micro investments. So I'm talking about the way the whole industry can transform, powering the small and medium sector, which is one of the most important segment in our society, in our economy, giving about 60% of the employment, about 40% of GDP. So they're now being constrained and limited by the world around them and the infrastructure around them and the different building blocks for them to grow, whether it is access to market, access to credit, access to skill, access to risk management. Everything is restricted because he doesn't have the equal opportunity, but he needs to compete with a big established player whose market control based on their depth of pocket is much different. So that's what we are trying to change. And we started making ourselves and proving that it is possible, making ourselves open to the larger world, January, in 23 January in Bangalore, when we started with food and grocery and then mobility. Last July, we did something like 2 million transactions. This July, we did about 12 million transactions, and we are hoping that similar kind of growth will happen in the coming year. And from the three segment, we started a lot of segments, including B2B and financial services. We first, before telling everybody, come, let's go big way, we want to demonstrate. We are thankful to some of the network participants who joined and demonstrated. And thanks to A, who sort of helped us to sort of fine tune some of the challenges that is there. And, we were few thousand applications came. Just because successful application didn't come doesn't mean the lender will lend. So a few tens of them were found to be useful and reliable to be paid. And in about 60, 70 of those um, uh, loans were approved in a matter of 6 minutes because everything was seamlessly linked. Now that we have reached and demonstrated, our team felt confident that it is time for us to tell all of us work together to scale. I'm not saying magic will happen coming month, but in the coming few months, we will definitely see significant growth that is happening, which is possible only with your help. Not just being participant and being either on the supply side or on the demand side, but also telling us how I can fine tune, how we can add more products, how we can sort of see this only the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg and help in this grow. And as financial services people, you are anyway being very actively involved in the industry as a whole. So in addition to offering them the financial services, the engine of the strength coming from data. So I will also request all of your help to, talk to your merchant clients to sort of actively look at and be participate in the network. With this, let me come to an end, and I'll leave it to my colleagues to go much deeper into the specific sector we are talking. We have Adil, we have Suresh, we have Sujit, etc., who will go deeper into the today's topic. Thank you all, and welcome once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Koshi, for sharing the vision and mission of financial services on the network. And we hope that you've heard and witnessed the ways in which ONDC is democratizing e commerce. An essential component of that is democratizing access to finance. And to talk about it, I would like to now invite on stage Mr. Suresh Sethi, MD and CEO at Protean eGov Technologies.
Good morning. So I've been given the topic, I think considering my gray hair or lack of hair, to talk about the attempts in the past in terms of democratizing access to finance and to talk about the future with ONDC. So as I look back, I think I will take a definite look at the past. As a financial services professional now for almost 30 years, and as a consumer of financial services, I mean, right from when we, sort of get into the workforce or otherwise, we've seen a multi-generational shift in the way we consume financial services today. As we all know, and this is a well, talked about experience, India has been a poster child in terms of rapid adoption and penetration of inclusion on the financial front. Not very long ago, we are talking almost, let's say, 10, 15 years ago, our banking penetration was hardly 20%, which means less than 20% of the people had a bank account, which becomes the start or the Aadhaar of starting to consume formal financial services. In a matter of 7 to 8 years, that penetration reached 80%. And what made that happen? If we look at international comparisons, we are talking about a fact that what India achieved in a matter of a decade or less would otherwise have happened in 5 decades. And what was at the base of it? At the base or the heart of it was digital public infrastructure. It was not just technology, it was technology, regulation, policy, law, everything coming together which made it a reality for India. We all know Aadhaar became a watershed moment from a time in 2010 where we had 60% of the people without a formal digital identity. We reached a point by 2018 with a 80% bank account penetration to have a 99% people having a digital identity in their hands. And what happened with this was the fact that with the identity DPI being in place, we were able to address challenges around accessibility, affordability, and interoperability. Let me start with the third since we are talking the past. And since there are some young people in the audience, I would like to call out that way back, we used to have a scenario when you could only work at your bank branch where you have got a bank account. So each branch was an island in itself. If you're dealing with a bank, you can't even go to another branch of the same bank and operate your account. With the advent of CBS, the core banking system, this changed. But let's look at the world today. Today, you can actually walk into a Kirana store. You can put your small biometric device and you can operate any bank account. And what Koshi talked about, ultimately, it's all about creating the network effect. And this network got created by multiple institutions coming in, plugging into the network, and then providing services at the last mile. I have been fortunate to have been part of some of these organizations which created this revolution, be it M-Pesa and then the advent of technology and telecoms coming into play as banking institutions, the entire payment bank framework. Then we looked at the fact that we were able to actually bring in a Government of India network in the form of India Post Payment Bank to provide banking services at the last mile. It is not very long ago we spoke about the fact that the nearest bank branch in rural India was 10 kilometers away. Today, you can actually get banking services in your home with doorstep banking services provided by a Dakia who was actually delivering your parcels and doing money order. He can do a full-fledged banking access for you across multiple bank branches. So these have been the cross-generational shifts which have come in. And at the base of it, clearly, there has been identity. We all are today consumers of UPI payments, DPI coming on top. And last but not the least, what completed the entire equation was the data DPI in the form of account aggregator. And that is where we come to credit. Because while we were able to open bank accounts, the penetration of credit still remained a challenge and still does today. Today, when we look at the MSME sector, the penetration of formal credit is sitting in low double digits. And what makes it a challenge? Because today you're looking at balance sheet financing. How do we look at flow-based financing? There have been global models where companies have looked at payment data, payment history, and have been able to provide surrogate credit scores basis which they have done lending. And we are very close to that with ecosystems being built around the account aggregator. Aadhaar, payments, UPI, leading on to account aggregator. It's a trio which comes together and makes a very powerful proposition. Credit today goes far beyond public sector institutions. We are not just talking the banking industry as banks, scheduled commercial banks. We are talking NBFCs. We are talking fintechs with the right regulatory enablement. Today being able to deliver last mile credit in the form of sachets. And we are looking at a huge network out there of assisted partners who can actually do it at the last mile, as we will see today. While Koshi said magic does not happen overnight, I think India has been making magic happen again and again. So when we look at ONDC, let's talk about that. The fact that we today have an ecosystem which is there out as a digital public infrastructure for connecting multiple parties. The journey started with digital commerce, but what was ONDC really solving for? ONDC at the first point solves for discoverability. Your ability to discover the provider of a service, a connection between the demand side and the supply side, and they bring together multiple demand entities and multiple supply entities together, and they can have a multiple not just a one-to-one communication, which happens in a platform-centric model, but a many-to-many conversation. And the second part comes the trust. An organization like ONDC today solves for the fact if I'm getting on a distributed network, how do I have a trust or from where I'm buying, what I will get, and what comes along with it. And financial services was naturally looked at as a natural extension from digital commerce to say how can we enable discovery of financial services, be it loans, be it insurance, be it anything in the ecosystem from a financial services consumption, can it be put on an open network? And that is where we are today. Uh, Combining that with account aggregator at the last mile, be it in an assisted mode at an agent network, or be it your self-service mode, you can share data, you can transmit it on the network. So there we see the combinatorial power of multiple DPIs coming together to solve for, again, accessibility, affordability, and interoperability. So looking forward to everybody coming on board this ecosystem, and let's make magic happen in the space of financial services. Let this be the next evolution beyond what we have seen over the last decade or so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sethi, for taking us through this subject. And yes, let's make magic happen, indeed. And while some boundaries must never be broken, today we're going to talk about the ones that must be. For this next address, I would like to call upon stage Mr. Sujit Nair, CEO and co-founder at FIDE, as he will talk about breaking boundaries through open network, how finance and commerce comes together.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Thank you, Koshi. Thank you, ONDC team. First, a huge round of applause for the journey that ONDC team has put together and come together. It's an incredible journey. Um, Always gives me goosebumps when I look at not just the numbers, but in terms of what an incredible story it's been putting together, not just for all of us to look at, but for the whole world to look at. And it's an inspiring effort every day, every moment. So, having to come after Koshi and Suresh, I will have to start with some confessions. I'm definitely not a financial services expert. Um, and I don't think I'm an e-commerce expert either. I probably start my introduction by saying that I'm just a student of the idea of internet, and therefore it puts me very squarely in the bracket of being a total generalist. So most of what I say probably could be, if not abstract, vague. But I would appreciate your patience to share what I think some of the incredible learnings that we are seeing, not just from the journey of ONDC in terms of breaking boundaries, but the journey that India has seen in terms of putting some of these grand designs out together for us to reimagine this whole new model of growth that the whole world is watching and appreciating. We heard some words today, and in the context of the topic, breaking boundaries, I think one of the words you've often heard when you heard about ONDC is unbundling, interoperability. Um, Now, I would probably want to bring them in the context of the moment we are here today and what does that actually, how does it actually pan out in terms of real value? Because for me, unbundling, interoperability are more of design features, design tool set, not actually the value that the society appreciates. I mean, what does unbundling even mean? But for me, I think the power of unbundling and interoperability is the fact that as an economy in India, for the scale that it caters to, whether it's on the businesses side or us as consumers, the whole expanse of it across the economic strata, I think it fundamentally does three things. It is making us believe that it is possible to, with this sort of design thinking of unbundling and interoperability, uh, think about how do we unify what's supposed to be this parallel set of trenches, and that exists in many forms at many levels. We had many marketplaces operating in silos. we could unify them as a network of platforms. And that's within commerce. What we are witnessing today is solving for the other parallel trench. There's a parallel trench of the trenches between the industries. Commerce was always distant from financial services, at least for the common man, at least for the small businesses. It's like, oh, you're in commerce. Commerce works this way. Financial services work this way. There are separate set of forms to be filled up here. There are separate set of forms to be filled up here. There are separate set of logins here for bank accounts. There are separate set of logins here. There's a separate loan application process here. There's a separate catalog publishing that I do here. We have parallel trenches not within the sector, which ONDC is trying to solve, but we are sort of solving for that across sectors. We're unifying what seemed to be seemingly impossible effort of bringing the best practices, the best wisdom, the best set of technologies and solutions from multiple sectors and make them come together and create a whole new set of possibilities. And that's the real unification that I'm very excited about. And I think that this is just the beginning of many such new imaginations that will bring about. And this is something that Suresh spoke about from the early days of Aadhaar. I think there's one big lesson that seems to be coming out as a repeated pattern, is that if you want to solve for problems for one sector, it cannot be solved from within that sector. You cannot solve it from within that sector without recognizing the intersections it has with several other sectors. You cannot isolate commerce as an isolated problem and not solve for the cost of finance, the financial side of aspects of setting up a business and making it go online. And this sort of problem solving, however arduous, however overwhelming, intimidating it may be, I think it's important that we definitely solve not just for the problem within, but also the intersections with the other sectors, which also means we have to be cognizant of the problems in the other sectors. And I'll come to that for whatever little I know about financial services. But today is that real imagination. And ONDC itself, as much as we thought it probably would be only doing retail, at least the early conversations of e-Kirana network, as I remember, to doing so many diverse sectors, but still largely in the realm of commerce, where you have some sort of a service provider or merchant, to now expanding that to financial services. I think it's a huge occasion. So the first important aspect, the moment of reckoning today, is this fact that we're unifying beyond the boundaries of not just platforms within a sector, but across sectors. And something as potent and as powerful as a financial sector will also have a way to reimagine commerce today. The second thing that I want to talk about, it's a little counterintuitive sometimes, but this aspect of being totally universal. ONDC for many is a network. For many more, probably outside this room, probably think that ONDC is a retail network, maybe a different version of some of the big platforms out there. But for me, ONDC is transcended that physicality to become this form of language that speaks business, that speaks platforms that do business talk to each other. Its fundamental design, the underlying protocol, did not start with this notion that it's very purpose specific to do only retail, but fundamentally assume that any, as Koshi mentioned, any service in any sector could be made to be available on this universal language of transaction protocol, and that can reimagine. So we were very clear in the early days of the design that this will get into financial services. This will get into a whole lot of services like agriculture, learning, skilling, and we are seeing all of that taking shape in one form or the other. So the universality is such an important element of design, because what it does, it reduces this cost of different platforms speaking different languages within different sectors to find a universal common way of speaking. And some of that is what we are seeing today. And I'll probably take a few examples as we go through. But the most important third part, I spoke about, of course, unified, universal. But the most important part, which is the true value of what we are trying to see with open networks, is that it's becoming, as an ecosystem, becoming user-centric. User as a consumer, user as a small business looking for flow-based lending, as Suresh mentioned, with probably very little asset holding. very personalized, contextually relevant for their care. I may not have enough collateral to provide, but can I pull in my book of business of all the orders from ONDC? Can I pull in my data footprint through account aggregator across all the financial data footprint that I have across different banks and other financial institutions? Can I bring them all, tie them all together, and give me a very personalized, specific, a loan proposal that can work for me, work in my atmosphere inside one single app, and make it available in 6 minutes? And that idea of a very personalized contextual relevance, and imagine if you were to put natural language and other interfaces on top of it. So for me, unbundling interoperability and breaking boundaries about solving for unification, not standardization, unification, because different sectors, different platforms, different users have their own diversity, which we need to respect. It's a feature, not a bug. Universality, as I was speaking about, go beyond just one purpose specific idea, and then be fundamentally user centric. And that, for me, is the essence of where I think the vision of ONDC is coming into its full fruition, in some sense, with financial services today. Um, I used a few words, but I think I just want to imagine if I were to dial time forward by 5, 10 years, and if all our efforts come to bear fruits in 5 years, what does it mean for the already sort of flourishing India's economy, particularly Indian digital economy? We probably would be seeing how we would have moved from, as an ecosystem, from a very high transaction cost, low trust, high value transaction per ticket, low volume, to high trust, sachetized, high volume, sachetized, low value, low latency economy. And that's the power. When we bring all these fundamental building blocks together, starting with UPI, of course, eKYC, and then account aggregator, 100 million consents, great run already, then e-sign, e-natch, and then tying them all together with this language of transaction that ONDC is, bringing them together to offer exactly at that point of need, that point of care, in that specific point of context, a very personalized offering, requires solving for the cost of transaction, cost of trust. So we spoke about it. Requires massive cost curve declines on cost of discovering a product that works for me, cost of getting into a loan application, fulfilling that loan disbursal, enabling with a single click, single consent, all my banking data, all my ONDC transaction data, creating a high trust, carrying my book of business, carrying my ONDC reputation as an extended attestation of my trust, my credibility, in addition to all the CIBIL scores and others that I have or I may not have as a small business, sort of enhancing that trust at a very, very low cost and making them work at that point of care for 70 million MSMEs, for 600 million adults, is I think is going to be somewhere. I think that's the direction we would be heading, and we'll be heading pretty fast if we accelerate on these efforts and combine our forces together. And this would require this unlock that ONDC is offering for financial services, is just a sort of making it easy for you to standardize how everybody discovers loans on a marketplace. But beyond that, think about what could be the new sachetized innovations that could come with this new imagination. Today, we sort of define markets as size of X or Y. We don't consider the remaining part, which is the unincluded, because the cost barriers are too high. But if we were to make this notion today that in 3 years the cost will plummet, just like how Aadhaar and eKYC brought, you can corroborate some of the numbers that I know. The eKYC cost from what, 2,500 rupees to what, 15 rupees? And that led to sort of a banking revolution that Suresh talked to. If we can see that kind of cost curve declines happening, What can we do more? What can we imagine more? Clearly, we are really in the cusp of seeing possibilities of composable combinatorial products like embedded finance. Our payment collections are coming from ONDC orders and not separate clearinghouse mandates. All of that coming together to create a whole new set of possibilities, sort of reducing the overall systemic risk of the small business economy that we want to uplift very quickly. That's the innovation I thought will be very, very excited. I'm particularly excited to see, and that's the stream of innovation I think ONDC will unlock with the collective imagination of all of us. Looking forward to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Nair, for this enlightening address and for appreciating the journey of ONDC. Moving on, we are now going to delve deeper into the role of credit. And for this next address, I would like to call upon the stage Mr. Adil Zainul Bhai, Chairman at Capacity Building Commission, to talk about the role of credit in thinking population scale digital transformation.
Good morning. So first, a clarification. Thank you so much for the introduction, but I'm not going to go deeper. I'm going to actually go broader. So just to clarify, so if you have some very technical questions regarding credit or beacon protocol, I'm the wrong person to ask. So I will, what I thought I would do is give a slightly broader perspective and then ask all of you a couple of questions on this. And I think that's the way I would like to position this. I don't know if many of you know my background, but for 35 years, I was at McKinsey till 2014 and worked in many industries, including financial services. And then since then, I've been doing work at various parts of the government, as well as on the board of various companies like Reliance, L&T, and others. So that's kind of my background. In the process of the work that I've been doing with the government, we've been doing a lot of thinking about this phrase that you all have heard about, which is Viksit Bharat, which is what will India look like in 2047? And you know, there are very, very, very few countries that have actually, in a very systematic way, asked the population of the country to start thinking about 25 years ahead. You know, at one point we used to have a 5-year plan, and everyone said that's a crazy thing. How can you predict 5 years? But we never thought about what the evolution of an economy, of a country, and of an industry should be over a 25-year period. And I think a lot of thinking is going on this, and that's why I wanted to talk about that and how it ties into what we're doing here. All of you know that today we are roughly 3.5 trillion, 4 trillion. We will become the 5th largest economy, and by 2030, 35, we will undoubtedly become the 3rd largest economy in the world. It is not possible to get there without a very large amount of innovation in how we do things. And I think that's what I wanted to talk about. Whatever credit numbers we have, and I think Suresh pointed out, you know, that we need to get substantially more credit to MSMEs and to large companies and to individuals. Imagine what that scale will be 10, 15 years down the road. It's going to be 10x, right? The median case for the Indian economy in 2047 is 30 billion. That's the median case. It's not the optimistic case. And I hope there is no pessimistic case. So let's start with that's 10x, and credit typically grows faster than the economy for it to grow at that level. So as a result of that, you can imagine what is the scale required to do this. We cannot get to that scale with the current structure of financial markets today. We'll have to invent new things to get there. Just as an example, it's also true for many other things, urban areas, rural areas, agriculture, etc. But in financial services, we cannot get to where we want to by doing just scaling up what we do today. It's just not possible. That's why innovation and leapfrogging is, I think, so critical. And I think one of the things that we all want to think about and we are thinking about is how do we not copy what others have done in other economies, but basically reinvent it so we can get to where we want to get to faster. And I think 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have the confidence to say we could do it. We would look at what somebody else did, and then we would say, can we copy it here? But until Aadhaar started, and until we started putting some of those in place, we didn't think that we could, we could leapfrog and do things a lot better. Today, we actually have higher 5G penetration in India than the US or Europe or any country in Europe. Definitely a lot better than the UK. So we have the digital infrastructure. We've leapfrogged in that. Now, what can we do with it is, I think, the real question. And credit and financial services is a very important area to completely innovate. So the ONDC network and other digital public infrastructure that we are trying to build as a country is our means of innovation, and our ability to do transactions at 1/10 the cost of anywhere else, our ability to do it 10 times faster than anywhere else, and our ability to make it more widespread than anywhere else. Many countries are now talking to us about what we've done and how can they implement it. And they're really talking to us about various forms of DPI. At the G20, it was very interesting when we talked about ONDC, and I think you had a booth there at one of the DPI things. And many countries came and said, how can we just take this and do it on our own? Okay. So we are now at a position where we are innovating, but I would call it only stage one innovation. The whole purpose of building a digital public infrastructure is that thousands of people then think about new ideas on how to use it. Okay. So ONDC being a digital public infrastructure, we don't know what use cases will work. We want you to innovate and come and tell ONDC, this is how I want to use it. Things that we have not thought about, and things that we can't even think about. That's the beauty of it, right? It's not one idea. It's 1,000 ideas that can build off of this digital public infrastructure. So the purpose of getting all of you in the room is not to say this is what we want you to do, and this is the particular way of doing it, but to encourage you to look at what are the capabilities of this and invent new things that can be done in financial services. I think that is the real purpose of getting a large number of you out here to help think about it. And you need to push us and say, this is what we would like to do. How do we make that happen on digital public infrastructure like ONDC? Okay? And because if we can then get 1,000 people to do that, and 1,000 firms to do it, and hundreds of firms that become very successful leveraging this digital public infrastructure, then I think we will have achieved it, and we will grow to the level that we need to grow to. Otherwise, it's not possible. I mean, you do the numbers. I don't know how many more branches you'd have to open to actually get 100% of the people to have bank accounts. Same thing with credit. So I think that is the really exciting part about it. So the second part that I want to talk about is, as we look at the growth of the country between now and 2047, one of the things that's very clear is we also want to create, among the top 3 startup ecosystems in the world. While large companies will do what they do, I think a lot of very interesting ideas that will drive the economy and drive markets will come from the startup ecosystem. Today, we already have 10 years ago, when we had this discussion, there were 10,000 startups. Today, there's 125,000 startups. There's no reason why we shouldn't have 1 million in 10 years. So the startup ecosystem is something we are relying on as a country to drive innovation. Our innovation is not coming from large-scale labs. It's coming from startups who are very committed to doing something. And if we can provide the digital public infrastructure and the financing and an ecosystem, then we expect that the startup ecosystem will, in fact, create all these innovations. So my second thought is, there's lots of young people and there's lots of young companies who are starting up. And I just want to encourage you to keep pushing on this, because we expect that a very large number of companies will become very successful creating products, not just for India, but for the world. So that's the second part of what that I want to talk about. When we first started ONDC, actually our vision on what ONDC could do was actually quite narrow. And it was quite narrow because we had to start somewhere and we couldn't see what the other use cases were. Most of the new use cases we're going after have come to us from our network participants and partners who come and said, hey, why don't you allow us to do this? What about this area? And how can we do something using the same concept of interoperability in this area? So you all, the network participants and our partners have been key helpers to us in expanding ONDC. So I would expect that you would continue to push us into areas where this digital public infrastructure can be useful in terms of creating new market segments and in helping the overall economy grow. So I'll end by re-stressing two things. One is we are not this the purpose of this session is not to tell you what use cases you should apply. It is to tell you what use cases do you think make sense and how can we do what you need to get done to make those use cases successful. This purpose of this is to have you tell us and you give us ideas that will help this digital public infrastructure grow and therefore help the overall credit market and financial services market grow to the extent we need to for the country to grow. And thirdly, for you to give us new ideas and as to what areas that this kind of digital public infrastructure can support over time and can grow. So I'll end with that and say I hope at the end of this you've given us at least 10 or 15 new ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your guidance on this subject, and we look forward to the innovation that ONDC and all of us will unlock together. And now, after all of these insightful sessions, it is time for us to bring a special guest to the stage for a fireside chat. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Nitin Chugh, DMD, SBI, and our very own Mr. T. Koshi to moderate this session on digital and financial inclusion vision for India. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome them with an applause.
Thank you for coming today with us and being with us. We didn't give you the stage there for one reason, because you are a uniquely positioned for this crowd show. I thought because I was old. No, 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 no. Now let me explain why you're so unique, which you know, but the rest of the people may not know. One is, as a board member, as an investor and representing SBI in ONDC, you know what we do, what we dream, what we aspire, and you help us to even think. So you're an insight. Second, you are a banker to the core, now representing one of the largest banks probably in the world, in a way, and also having done public sector before that private sector, you understand both sides so well. A very powerful banker. And thirdly, I'm seeing there are a lot of other unique things Nitin does. This what is that you also lead the digital, because we're all talking about digital. So we thought instead of we will coming from ONDC, I'll sit down and try to extract out the cream out of you to the larger public instead of just letting you limit your imagination.
Thank you. That's very, very flattering. Thank you very much. But I hope to be able to answer your or get into a discussion on things that you have in mind.
No, since I don't want to be the one talking, I want you to be the one talking. I just want to give some issue. So we were saying, we all heard the power of financial inclusion, and you have been working on this dimension quite a lot. So now that you know us very well, and what we are starting today is just a start. What we are aspiring is a lot more. How do you think it is going to drive financial inclusion as a vision, and how it is going to really drive up our economy because of the extended inclusion that will make it possible. We would like to have your thoughts on it.
See, I think for the longest time, bankers have believed that inclusion was only having a bank account, but that is no longer a problem. So that part has been solved for a long enough time. So they spoke about that. The problem now is to, which is what we speak in terms of some of the schemes that the government runs in terms of saturation of insurance, credit, saturation of investments. So again, if you break it down, one way of looking at it is that yes, everybody has joined the formal banking system in some way or the other. We can argue that not everybody is transacting as much, but in general, everybody is a part of that ecosystem. Two, people have, for most part, have access to credit, but maybe not everybody has access to formal credit. Okay. So when we start breaking this down into, let's say, something as simple as health insurance, that I believe has already got sachetized and got distributed through multiple schemes. Okay. That's been done through the AEPS, through BC networks, by banks, and to an extent, I think micro pensions, micro insurance, those are problems which are half solved to the extent of being close to some level of saturation. So the problem that's really unsolved even today is one, your um, insurance on the non-general side, which is life insurance or insurance for, let's say, business setups. Two is for credit, which all of us have been talking about. And three, for more sophistication in terms of building capacities through investments. And that will logically follow after, the problem for credit is solved. So I think there is still enough and more to be done for the next 100 years. We are just about beginning, and with more and more efforts of formalization that are taking place, we just see that everybody will have a part to play.
Thank you. In this context, when we look at what ONDC is enabling today, because if you look at that's a very unique idea, not just in retail products, but also in financial services, bringing a variety of enterprises to come manage the demand side and leaving it to the specialized entity to manage the supply side. But instead of trying to match each supplier with a small community of demand and doing that in multiple times, we are creating a network. How do you think it is going to change with respect to scope and extent on the supply side and the demand side? So, what is your hope and what's the message to the larger banking community?
See, on the demand side, like even Adil mentioned, credit usually grows between 2x to 2.5x of the GDP, generally as an industry. Most of the larger banks will grow in that proportion. Smaller banks can even grow at 3 times to 4 times GDP on a smaller base. So the demand is certainly going to be there. The supply side is obviously going to be constrained, and we are seeing that in the last 6 or 8 quarters that there has been a squeeze for deposits. There has been some kind of uh, shrinking on the deposit side, and which is why the deposit rates are what they are. And most banks are running into issues of managing their credit to deposit ratio. Okay, larger banks probably don't have an issue, but we are coming across instances now where banks are actually having to say that I need to slow down my lending business because I can't manage my CD ratio otherwise, I can't manage my LCR otherwise. Now, in that context, if these situations keep coming, let's say in waves of once in 10 years, then on a 100-year basis, banking cannot be the only supplier of credit for a long enough time in the same manner like the way we have, distributed financial products and credit especially. So it needs to open up. And if it has to open up, the old model was a marketplace model. You get into a platform, there is discoverability, but yes, it's a walled garden. Anybody who goes there, that person can see 8, 10 different options, chooses which bank or lender the customer wants to deal with. Now there is going to be even greater discoverability. So with that happening, I think the multiplier effect, like the way we are seeing in the volumes for NDC commerce itself, from 2 million to 12 million in less than 12 months, maybe it's not going to be at that scale, but it'll certainly be more than 2.5 times of GDP if we get this multiplier effect through the network. So I'm not yet calling it the network effect because in lending, you also need responsible lending. So you don't want a long tail of irresponsible lenders also coming up who will derail this whole effort and eventually end up with a problem of bad balance sheets, 20 years down the line.
That's true. So when this whole thing, like there's a supply and this demand, but there are a lot of building blocks to make it stronger. For example, collection is another building block. Document management is another building block. So when it is like, I was explaining you what we saw in the physical world. What do you think are the other building blocks which can also come as services, which may make reasonable sense without increasing the risk, but rather helping to manage the risk of the supplier and the.
So let me give you the example of KCC. That effort has been going on for the last 2 years, perhaps. There is now a push by the Agriculture Ministry to build a countrywide agri stack. But I think some of the states already went ahead and did that. Karnataka did that, MP did that, Maharashtra did that, UP also has done that in a few districts. So that's kind of gone about. Now, that really has brought about as a possibility is that the process of a KCC loan, which is against, let's say, crop grown on a parcel of land, it is still not secured, by the way, because there is no charge on the crop or the land, which could have taken a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, depending on how efficient the bank is now happening in 10 minutes. Why? Because the ability for the agri stack to pull information from satellite imagery, to pull a document from the land records of the state, transliterate that, bring all of that into a business rule engine, the agreement signing happening through DDE and e-stamping and all of that is now an end-to-end digital process. Yes, maybe somebody needs to help the farmer, and maybe some farmers are on their own also, but that is now something that's already a solved problem, at least on a POC basis. Now, if you take the same extension to lending through ONDC, all these other elements will have to come. So what does a small business deal with? If you are only looking at the transaction flows, maybe the banks will say that, oh, I can only give you a loan of X amount. But if you also give me, let's say, your property records, if you give me a charge on your inventory, I can give you 3x. If you also give me access to your receivables, I can give you 5x. So now where does all of that come into the whole network on a digital basis, comes together into a rule engine, which very quickly processes and says that, yes, in 6 minutes, you not only have a decision, you also have the loan completed end to end. So those are things I think we need to think about, because flow-based lending or cash flow-based lending has been tried in the past, but usually it brings it down to a level where it is not sufficient for it can solve a temporary, uh, working capital problem, but it cannot solve for a capacity building problem.
Brilliant. That's a very important point. So I'm just asking you to do some visual thinking, not that we have to. For example, one of the component that Mahesh is here, is trying to do many of the regulated kind of data to come together. But similarly, I, as a individual or as a business owner, may have a lot of other data sources. Like you said, agriculture is one, like my receivable is one. So do you think that this consent-based access to many of this databases, instead of trying to do each lender trying to do end-to-end connection to all these providers, so there'll be the idea of an account aggregator could sort of expand to sort of link multiple of these things. And do you think that is happening in our country?
I think we've been through those discussions in the Governing Council of Sehmati also, which I participate in. And we have always looked at more and more data sources, more and more possibilities of getting authentic data with consent, which will reduce the burden for the consumer to provide that data. So that is an ongoing thing. I don't think there is an end destination there where any piece of data which is coming through a document which is in a repository, or something which is there as part of a accounting system or otherwise, is always going to be valuable. Okay? So I think the same example, if you extend it to ONDC, ONDC obviously has the option of saying that everybody can come on the network. You are a document provider, even if you're a government entity, you can participate in the network. I will give you discoverability, but they may not work that way.
Yep.
They will say, why should I give you discoverability of everything I have? I don't need that. I need something which is coming through a specified consent channel.
Yeah.
And when it is genuine and authentic is when I will provide you with this information after my due checks.
Absolutely.
So that is where AA becomes important, because it is coming through a verified, authenticated, responsible channel.
Yep. True. So I'm now extending this thought from an open ONDC point of view. Today, while we claim 2 million became 12 million, but finally, when it look at merchant base, it's less than 1 million merchants was already there. But that is like tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. So, being a banker, you yourself a banker, and many of us sitting here are bankers here, and they all have their corporate, they all their customers, be MSME and small. How do you think that the bankers directly or indirectly can influence and support their participation in the network? Do you think that's a possible idea that will really help? Will that be something that will be taken up? Because that will sort of finally edge into your line of business too.
See, banks on their part um, are required to give access to, let's say, credit.
Yep.
And banks are in the business of lending, so they would like to give access to credit that they can underwrite, okay, to somebody who wishes to
Yep.
take it from a specific bank. Now, when you give that same consumer access to network on the buyer side, saying that I am one of the providers, here are 10 others, you can go on the network and you can decide that. That will take a little bit of a higher position for banks to say that, oh, I'm asking my customer to also go to other banks. But we are anyway doing that through the account aggregator.
Yes.
Right? We are letting our customers choose who they want to deal with through the account aggregator. So I don't see that as so much of a problem. But I think on the seller side, when sellers want to access credit and they come through the network, and the banks, the role that they will have to play there is to say that, okay, fine, I can give you access on my, let's say, the buyer app or through the network participant that I'm working with or whoever else, and you get access to the network. Even if you don't find me as your banker, I will still at least help you in realize that option of going to the network through my buyer app. Because I might have a buyer side app and I can tell my my merchant to say that while you come to my buyer app, I'm not the only one who's going to be giving you the loan. Exactly the same way it will work on the seller side, right? So, I mean, just to not talk very complicated,
Yeah.
banks will have a role to play to socialize this whole thing, but banks will also keep their own interest.
Yeah.
I don't think we
Absolutely.
can wish it away and say that, oh, no, 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 we are all
No, we are
for.
not doing well
That is
philanthropy.
one. The second
Only
thing,
ONDC
yeah.
is the Section 8 company. We
Of
don't
course,
expect
of course,
everybody.
of course, and we are stakeholders even there. But
Yeah.
I think the more important thing is that the network effect will come through waves of participation rather than, a certain set of people pushing consumers onto the network, because you can't push in a network. You
Yeah,
can't push.
absolutely.
People have to come naturally and they have to see and experience it themselves.
Thank you, Nitin. Like I've been trying to extract out your thoughts, but I'm sure there are many things that I don't know how to ask you even. And all the people who are sitting here are your brethren. So our sort of time is coming. I will be grateful if you could see a big picture from your point of view as a message, because you know both sides. Now I'm asking you to wear both the hats, not just the SBI digital head hat, but as a ONDC board member too, and to our larger community of network participants, lenders, and prospective. We'll be keen to hear your thoughts on that.
See, I have only one. I wouldn't call it a message because I think everybody sitting in the room is very, very important for this whole effort. But my own way of looking at something which is still early stage is that we need to put responsible guardrails whenever we are scaling up. And thankfully enough, we've not had accidents, and God forbid we have any of those. But when we open it up for lending and at scale, it is very, very likely that we will have irresponsible lending also coming in, just out of sheer exuberance. For the fact that, oh, there is so much demand, and these guys can't meet it, and those guys can't meet it, and I can meet it, and I will do it. So, like you were saying, you need collections, you need this, you need all of that. Those practices, whether they're there or they're not there, underwriting will have to be responsible. And once you open it up to the entire framework of financial services, the entire set of participants, uh, we will have to have those guardrails in place so that people stay responsible.
Thank you, Nitin. I think it's time up, and it is really good that you could come and look at the whole subject from multiple facets. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Mr. Chug, Mr. Koshi, for the fireside chat and for sharing the big picture with us. We now have among us an interesting set of panelists who are going to discuss on how credit is getting implemented on the ONDC network. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Nilay Patel, founder and CEO at EasyPay. Mr. Akshay Mehrotra, co-founder and CEO at Five. Mr. Anand Bajaj, founder, MD, and CEO at Pay Nearby. Mr. Pankaj Gadgil, MD at Aditya Birla Home Finance Limited. Mr. Sekhar Rao, Executive Director, Karnataka Bank. This session will be moderated by Mr. Rishikesh Mehta, Senior VP Financial Services at ONDC. Let's hear from the experts. Over to you, Rishikesh.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. I think, the idea of what we're trying to do at ONDC has been very well articulated by all the speakers that came before us. But I think it takes a lot of courage for the network participants that you see on the left, and we have DMI Finance missing because they couldn't make it. But it takes a lot of courage to invest and make something real, which is actually, if you think about it, quite a paradox because we're saying we're going to innovate by standardizing, right? And it required a big muscle change. There were a lot of capabilities that were built. A lot of the people you see on the stage took a bet on something that we had no idea whether it would work, but they committed to it to doing it, even if it was messy. And I think the first thing I think we should hear from the participants is why they even came to ONDC to do credit, because it's a great idea, been hard to implement, but it's real now. We're just under 100 loans. And as you know, Mr. Koshi said earlier, we're confident now that it will scale. So what I'll do is I'll maybe start with the lenders. So, if you could start with Pankaj, who's been a real supporter of digital public goods, even when in his ICICI Bank days and now at Aditya Birla Capital. So, we're going to ask all the panelists this question. So Pankaj, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Rishi. I think the idea of starting off early, I think is what you're trying to hint at with ONDC. I think culturally at the group, I think we always want to get associated with something which is new, where the opportunity is getting unlocked. So that's the cultural DNA of the organization. So true to the DNA of the organization, I think we decided that this was something, and lots has been spoken in the day as well. But just to repeat, three things which really stood out, for us to participate is clearly the great gap that all of us know, and numbers were put up in perspective. 40 crore people have a credit line in India. There are almost 2x of customers who have a smartphone. The payments is now trending at about 55 crores. So credit gap is known to all of us, and access the way we access with of course due regard to what distribution architecture all of us have set, including the branches and also the NBFC HFC space. I think access creates always is an opportunity. And third, I think in this entire journey, when we speak about the credit gap, I think the knowledge of how do we underwrite keeps evolving, and it has to keep evolving. And I think ONDC, with it being an open protocol, and Sujit spoke about the backend protocol, and it being an open protocol, I think there obviously was a clear expectation that there will be alternate data which is going to be accessed, which will help us in improving our underwriting very, very rapidly. And second, of course, the cost of intermediation is going to keep coming down with the access points becoming more and more prevalent with ONDC coming in. So I think, and most importantly, I think I have been part of the UPI movement, the way you call it in my earlier assignment, and I have seen early adopters, how, they have, positioned themselves when it comes to UPI. So I think the idea of Aditya getting associated with this was, and we had our skills also in terms of working with very large, managing large partnerships. So I think it came naturally to us, and therefore, we've kind of invested. And to put things in perspective, I think the start has been made, but I think where rubber meets the road, I think there is a lot that all of us will have to do to actually do several loans in 6 minutes. I think that is where I will kind of pause.
Thank you, Pankaj. So over, Shekhar, if you could tell us, Karnataka Bank has been the first bank to come on board. What has been your experience? Did you have to build any capacity to do this? It gives a sense, I think, to the others who are evaluating whether to come on board, what they would need to do to participate, and what has your experience been so far?
As a bank, over the last year or two, we've been trying to reinvent ourselves. We've completed 100 years of our existence, but we rechristened ourselves as a startup at 100. And that's where this digital space, where access, democratization, cost, all these elements, the boxes get ticked. And we are building capacity here. In fact, even in the government initiatives where not exactly along similar lines, whether it's the PM Swanidhi or PM Vishwakarma, all these we have been large participants. In fact, larger than many of the big banks. And our belief is that for inclusion goals, partnership is the route. Standardization is something that will bring in great scale and efficiencies. We've seen co-lending announced many years ago with a lot of fanfare. But there again, while you have marketplaces, there is no standardization. Every integration is bespoke. And hence, that has not really taken off. It has taken off in convenient spaces, but not in the real sense. So we believe that platform like this with standardized protocols, capacity, access, uh, it's got huge potential to kind of mature it to something big. So we want to be there early. We want to participate in how the ecosystem develops and it gets defined. And hence we are there.
Thank you. So now we'll come to Akshay, who's already a technology-driven lender. So, Akshay, could you tell us what drove you? Like, what is it about ONDC that it thinks it's valuable for you to participate on?
I think there are two elements of the entire point. The first point has always been time to market has to be early and fast. If you look at the UPI movement, let's say the innovators were very early who were Paytm, PhonePe, etc., who jumped in and said we can outperform as startup community, really the incumbent, and really build out a new ecosystem. And that's what we believe the startups today can disrupt and reach out faster. But the other antidote is actually very interesting. A few minutes, and you mentioned 6 minutes here. Interestingly, consumers understood an important point. We charge interest daily, which means if you borrow at 12:01 at night, you save 1 day interest. And if you look at how many people end up borrowing between 12:01 and maybe 1 o'clock at night, almost 20% of the demand happens that time. So people are becoming sharper when it comes to saving money and borrowing, and we generate a large amount of demand today. We expect platform integrations where unification takes place. Maybe our demand can go up 10 times. Today, we generate nearly 35 million demand a year. We hope that with the ONDC network, can we generate another 35 million within the first year itself. That's the expectation we see from platforms like these coming in, where unified access comes in to attract more people, and that could give us a reach to really expand in the consumer base.
Thank you. So now we'll come to, so we've covered the supply side. So now we'll come to the demand side, and we have both Nilay from EasyPay and Anand from Pay Nearby. So Anand, if I can ask you, what drove you to come on board? I mean, you're a seasoned banker, now with the banking correspondent business. What drives you, and what do you think you can do on ONDC given your customer base?
This man drives me, Suresh, my boss at Yes Bank, when we stood up to granularize, sachetize, and universalize the banking services. And we said we will take most of the financial services to most of the people at most of the places. And I exited bank and started this nearby technologies because banks are far away, lenders are far away, insurers are far away, but there is a nearby Kirana store. So we said, Har Dukan Digital Pradhan. After a year and a half of work, The other gentleman sitting there, Kumar Rajgopalan, calls me one evening saying, "You have been talking about sachetizing, granularizing. Why don't you talk to Koshi? He's taking up the responsibility of ONDC." And an evening, hour-long chat with Koshi said that, "Anand, your dreams are going to be fulfilled. Granularize, sachetize, digitize, universalize. यही तो formula है ONDC का." So breaking the components and then getting more ecosystem players to participate. So not that I'm blaming you, Suresh or Kumar, but the whole idea is that when you are standing up with a purpose, with a vision, which is little far-fetched in the journey, when you are committed, a lot of people co-create. So it's a co-create Bharat moment for us. And when we say that Har Dukaan Digital Pradhan taking services through each and every shopkeeper as a digitization harbinger for the local 211 household, we mean it actually. There is so much of power in that kirana store, the human intelligence, the social intelligence. Sharma ji ka ladka padhne ja raha hai, Gupta ji ki beti ko job chahiye, and that intelligence is available with the retailer. So harnessing that with the transaction data, which is in terabytes now with us, one step at a time. Of course, when we started 9 years ago, in our ninth year now, we have amazing amount of data which tells us uh, who is bharosemand retailer. So we, of the 1.2 million retailers, have carved out certain data, and we can write an FLDG of 100% if Reserve Bank allows, that these retailers will not run away. There is a continuum, momentum, growth in the business of those retail partners. Consistency, recency, frequency, growth of products, 2 product, 3 product, 50 customers coming to same retailer. If I were a lender, I would have lent them. Yeah, but there is huge opportunity thanks to ONDC, not only credit, also commerce. We also make steel. You are known for original as for commerce, but insurance is around the corner, and so is mutual fund. So amazing times.
Great, thank you, Anand. So now Nilay. So Nilay was actually the first to go live as a LSP or buyer app on ONDC. Nilay, tell us what you think this will do for you. I know EasyPay is a relatively new company; it's a startup, and I'll speak a little bit for him, and where he's really doubled down. So why do you know ONDC? So why have you done this? Why do you think this will be beneficial, and how can you think about building a business on top of the rails at ONDC? Hold it close.
Why? First of all, I'll answer why. Uh, my first lender was a kirana store. Probably I went to get an eraser or a pencil or a cricket ball. That was the guy who gave me the first credit. And those are the guys who are deprived of credit. I would want to kind of help them in every way possible. ONDC as a rail is amazing. I can think of multiple use cases which will come into play in future. But right now, the simplest of the people, banks, for example, I mean, right now, it's the question of not multiple lenders coming on board. So I'll address that as well, where the tech stack, people think that ONDC tech stack is heavy because it's built that way, but it's very simple. And as a participant, we've been helping every participant who want to come on to ONDC. But at the same time, I would encourage every bank and NBFC to come on board, because that is how, if India were to grow into X trillion dollars economy, this is an unprecedented tech stack that has been built. And over the coming years, I feel you know there'll be a virtual co-lending ecosystem that will develop uh, because of ONDC, where banks and NBFC who have collection capabilities can come on board and address the needs of the MSME as well as individual. I feel that credit cards in physical form will disappear. It'll be virtual and it'll be thanks to ONDC. I can keep on going uh, on the same context, but ONDC in financial services is the answer to the future of India.
Thank you, Nilay. Now, I'm going to ask a couple of maybe a little controversial questions, but the first one for Pankaj and Anand. What do you see ONDC's role in 5 years from now? Obviously, today we're just laying the rails, bringing the players on, creating the market. But where do you see our role 5 years from now?
I think, Rishi, see, when you look at it from the customer's perspective, I was thinking when I was watching the other presentations that was happening, I think very critically, customer insights, how they've changed and the way people consume, today and what it was, 3 years back. So 3 years back, the rule was FPN. FPN is customers want everything free, perfect and now. ये तीन were very, very important. अब थोड़ा change है in the last 3 years. So free है, but it is, kind of slightly diffused. Now it is, I would say, it is a moment where people are wanting things personalized, convenience, perfect and now. So it is now PC, PCPN. That is the, change that, I see. And personalized becomes very, very important. Perfect, but anyways, everybody wanted always. Now is instant. And convenience, has really, kind of shot up. So these four, if those are the attributes, and of course they will keep evolving. These are all, things that keep changing, and social media also, keeps also evolving very, very quickly here. I think these four things, and when I look at ONDC on the other side, I think because of the nature, because of the way the architecture has been, kind of created, where customers can, engage on the respective app that they want to engage, or the form factor that they want to engage. So it's very personalized. It's very convenient. They don't need to have multiple applications that you have to go to. They don't have to give information multiple times. They don't have to work with various lenders to avail of financial services. So in my assessment, the architecture is perfect, from that perspective. I think what will differentiate, and we spoke about the 2x growth Nitin spoke about, and all of us know this data. But for that to happen and for ONDC to play a very active role, I feel there are two things. One is that everything which is continuing today, which is intermediation, branches, the way wallet gardens will also operate, everyone will have a place. And just the way we have seen in many moments that today also cash, if you see in the economy, it is there, but the growth rates keep coming down. People still go to the ATM and borrow, but that journey is not the fast moving queue. The fast moving queue keeps changing. So in my assessment, the fast moving queue can be ONDC, provided of course that as an ecosystem, learnings get captured. The execution that we are speaking of becomes even sharper than what it is today. A very simple example is today the default journey that we have started off with is AA journey, right? And of course it is the right way to operate, but possibly for low ticket sizes, and AA possibly may get preferred for higher ticket sizes, and there is another journey which is also possible, which is friction free, which is just a bureau based journey. Or for example, today on ONDC, the entire premise that there will be data which Anand spoke of, the trust that he was kind of the proprietary trust that he was talking about, of the 12 lakh merchants that he's got. That information today is not flowing to the lender for us to devise and keep evolving our scorecards. So that is the differentiator really for ONDC. So I think the steps have been taken, initial steps have been taken, where AA has got integrated. The the very important thought, which is multiple pings will not happen. Information will come in a standardized way. But sometimes we have to also challenge this, and also get our feet wet. That is that what is today's today's world? Is that the today's world? So we started off by saying that this should be uniform. But in my assessment, we have to keep evolving our thought process, keep learning in the ecosystem, and keep evolving our journeys, and not get wedded to one single thought. So I think the core architecture is outstanding. But in my assessment, the collective learning and the collective ecosystem which is there, seeing people who are actually lending and how are they lending, and I think those practices have to get in. And two big points is alternate information has to come in, and with DPDP, of course, it will become even more prevalent. It will become even more structured. And the second is, of course, thinking through journeys which are different, because we'll have to keep those four attributes that I spoke of, which is the PCPN, at the core. And I think ONDC has a great role to play in my assessment in the next 5 years.
Thank you, Pankaj. So, we think just like a startup, we hypothesize, deploy, and iterate post market feedback. So, feedback taken, we'll actually do that. Anand, over to you.
Don't stop at that. Am I audible? Don't just stop at that. And I have a corollary just here in front of you. NPCI did what they did in last 10 years, rolling up the sleeves which you have already folded to get on beyond protocol formation. And this is actually transformation of the way people have lived their lives and the past has been built. It's about reimagining opportunity and काफी बलिदान होगा. तो इसमें समझना इस बात को ऋषि, I recollect you don't remember Hindi well, you mentioned it to me, but इसमें काफी आहुतियां चढ़ेगी, बहुत काम है अभी, and every service will become a micro service compatible with each other on call. And Sujit, you have written it well on the backend protocol, the way everything, सारी कायनात बदल जाएगी, everything will be rewired, reconfigured. For ONDC to grow, I'm no one to say much, but I would only request, like someone said, जब इंश्योरेंस बढ़ रहा है तो क्लेम की सर्विस चाहिए होगी, और जब लोन बढ़ रहा है तो कलेक्शन वालों की जरूरत पड़ेगी. We just had a brief chat on the side, and our friend from another bank said that I would lend only where I have my collection service. But I said, look, he's another lender. He has his collection service there. Why don't you collaborate? That's the open architecture advantage that is possible. I just read on LinkedIn in the morning that Kerala court has come on the open network, and you can file a case from anywhere. The judges can respond from anywhere. So everything actually is up for granularization, sachetization, universalization.
Thank you, Anand. So,
but sleeves folded.
So last question in the interest of time, both Shekhar and Akshay. This is the hard one to answer in public, but what regulatory or policy support would you look for? Because whilst we build the protocol, we still live in a highly regulated environment. And as a bank transforming into the digital age and as a technology-led NBFC, what do you think can be done to create a more conducive environment to reach that bottom of the pyramid? Because typically, I think we've built to serve the 100 million. What can we change to create a conducive environment to reach the 700, 800 million people we want to serve?
Maybe I'll go first. I think we saw one large transformation over the last 18 months. As the DLG guidelines came in, many LSPs came into picture where you can partner as a fintech to lend directly. And we saw, let's say, e-commerce companies were the first one to jump in the bandwagon. Next was the UPI payment apps. What they had a lot of underneath data, but we all had to rely on hard hits. What's very unique is with ONDC, there's a soft hit concept come in where we can do decisioning on a soft hit. What's missing today is how will we get data of the underlying, let's say, merchant and his performance of his consumer, right? Or his performance of his transaction or his receivables. If they come into picture, then we have a larger ecosystem getting built in because we have our own learnings which came in faster. See, the logic of working with a large player upfront is he has a lot of his own learnings and your scorecards get improvised faster. With the network, if those inputs can come in transitionally faster, our evolving scorecard will be much better. I'll just get another example I'll give in. Usually a scorecard development approach was 12 months, implementation was 9 months. So a bank or an NBFC will come out with new scorecards 19 months to 3 years. Today, a scorecard at, let's say, the new age scorecards take 21 days to build, 9 days to implement. So you have a complete new infrastructure coming in for decisioning every 30 days. And that's the evolution of the behavioral scorecard that we run, which means that if we have more underlying data coming in, we can evolve really fast. And we saw that with e-commerce companies that we partnered to do, let's say, lending at. Can we do that with the network here? And if we can get that data, evolution and growth rates, which can enable to take larger risks, take classical actions. The example of can we go down in Kerala and actually start saying legal notices rather than focusing on physical collections there. And there can be many more things to come and build the ecosystem to build out larger distribution of lending. But lending is the largest monetization for any, let's say, network, any merchant, and end mile availability of capital to spend more money for the end consumer.
Thank you. Over to you, Shekhar.
Yeah. In RBI and other regulators that we have, we've seen them to be fairly progressive. In fact, if you follow the way UPI evolved, the regulators have permitted fair bit of experimentation. But it is important that both sides walk the distance. You had NPCI and RBI and all the regulators collaborating actively. And those conversations should start happening in this nascent stage, where we need to kind of walk the talk in engaging meaningfully on a continuous basis on opportunities available. There are so many. In fact, credit on UPI. If we can just imagine how it can come onto the ONDC platform. Right now, credit on UPI would be specific to a particular operator, and now if you make it available on this platform and kind of democratize it, and probably engage with regulators on how you can do that. It expands the, again, you solve for data, you solve for speed, you solve for availability, you solve for many issues. So these are thoughts that you need to kind of have a continuous dialogue on. There is a sandbox also available, and we can do some of this with the regulator in the sandbox that they provide. I would see regulator would be more of an enabler here, and they in fact encourage innovation in this space, particularly in areas that lead to financial inclusion.
To add awareness, no, Rishi, sorry for butting in. म्यूचुअल फंड सही है से बेटर कोई कैंपेन नहीं है. 65 लाख करोड़ का जो बन गया है अभी AUM, उसमें बहुत बड़ा हाथ उसका भी है. So ये this we have to have something which is going maybe after some point of time when the adoption starts. वो सोचना पड़ेगा.
Feedback taken. We will take this up. So I think with that we'll bring it to a close. I just want to call out a couple of other early adopters, both Paisa Bazaar and Tata Digital, which you'll be seeing demos from other than the people sitting on the stage. So with that, we'll close this and thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Krish.
Thank you, Rishikesh, and gratitude to all our panelists for this dialogue. We truly appreciate your perspectives and contributions. I see we have among us Mr. Kumar Rajagopalan. Sir, given that you represent the retail industry as the CEO of Retailers Association of India, if we could please have you on stage so that you could share some perspective with us on credit access and financial inclusion. Please give him a big hand.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Everybody there? Just want to know how many of you have got a EMI running in some place or the other currently at an individual level? Raise your hand, don't feel shy. Is it because you're all bankers that you don't take EMI loans, nothing? not enough hands there, or all of you are super rich? The fact of the case is, in the last, at least to the extent of my understanding of the various customers, most of the middle class consumers have been able to access EMI or finance, and that's made them think about buying items that's aspirational. Most of my stores, especially if I give you an example of CDIT, the Consumer Durables and Information Technology product selling stores, used to be at about 40% of their business used to be with consumer finance. In the current day, it's about 70%. And some of those companies, the retailers who are members with us, are of the opinion that had there not been access to credit, they'd have had to kind of wound up their businesses. Many times they are able to see that the customers are coming in, the walk-ins have come down, but the size of their basket is increased because customers say, "ठीक है ना, मेरा खुद का पैसा नहीं तो भी I have got somebody who is willing to give me lending, and therefore I'm able to buy something." I think this has become the fact. The fact is that consumer finance is big, and that's kind of getting consumers into a thought of I can buy more than what I have currently. Similar is the case. I think we've already had Anand telling as to why is it that there is credit requirement for the retailer themselves. Many of the smaller retailers need credit, and if that can get created, again business grows. In some cases, the dukandar is ready, the customer is ready, but yet the business can't happen because the supplier does not have enough money. Again, credit comes into the picture. I think the important part of really greasing the whole ecosystem of commerce is the availability to credit. But now you couple it with what's happening to all of us as individuals. We are getting to be as individuals, we are getting to be time poor and attention poor. Many of us are looking at your mobile phones at the same time, even listening to what's happening here. The others are also thinking that I can maybe access from somewhere else. When this kind of a situation happens, the only thing that will help is if, as soon as there is a decision to be made, you are able to make everything available to the consumer. That means the product has to be available, the ability to supply it to the customer has to be available, and the credit that has to go to the customer has to be available. And that's what I think is the journey that can happen much easier with ONDC as a capability builder. Why ONDC? The big thing that I talk about ONDC, because I'm on the advisory part of ONDC, is that it is about us. It is about all of us coming together and creating a collective capability that can help move things faster. It's not just about having one or two or three people coming in and saying, "I'm the big dada," so the others will get left out. I think each person in the ecosystem has got some capability, and when you bring all of them together, the collective capability is what ONDC is all about. That's why I think when ONDC talks about finance and ability to create the journey of finance easier, it's going to be much nicer. Because what do you need? You need the product, you need the services, you need the finance, you need the knowledge and the information that has to flow through, and you need various service providers to come through so that it becomes more democratized. I am, for one, very, very keen about this happening. I know many of us are going to see life very differently when this happens. The days are not too far away when you would be able to watch your favorite movie on Netflix, at the same time take a decision that you want to buy a new house, go on to an app which is enabled by ONDC, buy a house on credit at that minute, and come out of that place. Can you do that? I think it's possible. It's not very difficult to think about. If you want to do it, you have to do it. And most of us as consumers are like that. When we are thinking that we want something, we want it now, pronto. 5 years ago, we had done a small group of customers as our as a group study, and we asked them, "What do you think will really make you excited?" And they said, "I should be able to shop at the speed of thought." It cannot get done unless you have an ability like ONDC to come in, because that's what makes things happen. Many of us are excited today to be living in a market where our ability to be able to buy an item, even as we are cooking, if we find turmeric is not there, we are able to buy it on one of those uh, platforms, the fast delivery platforms, the quick service platforms, and able to really make sure that we are getting the turmeric even before we finish cooking. Now that's possible even better, faster, easier if ONDC is there. Add the tadka of finance, becomes even easier. So that's where I am. I think it's exciting times. Most of us who are sitting here thinking, "Dusra koi karega, I will then follow suit," are going to land into trouble, because it's not about somebody else doing. It's about each one of us contributing to this pot called collective commerce, to make things happen. So I hope all of us will join in and make sure life is easier for each one of us as consumers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Gopalan, for sharing that perspective with us. We now have some demos. And for the next one, I would like to invite Mr. Sam Gulati, Senior Product Manager at Tata Digital, to lead us through this next demonstration.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the panel members, and thank you, all the delegates, for such an enlightening session. So maybe we can have a video started and we can start with the demo. So basically what we are seeing right now is a Tata Neo app. Tata Neo app is kind of an omni-channel where we host all our services, shopping, electronics. So financial services is one of the section where customer clicks on Money Plus and then goes into the loan journey. So here you are seeing is a product description page wherein we are just telling user, giving a gist that what's ONDC, what are the USPs and what is the process. So the page that you are seeing right now is like pre-filled with some of the information that we have, and this forms as a basic form which we are going to collect data from the customer and eventually pass it across to all the seller apps, seller lenders in the system. So right now we are on the address collection, like we are taking address details. Again, these were pre-filled basis, the things we had. This step you're seeing right now, it has been redirected to account aggregator. So what's happening right now, the basic details plus a combination of account aggregator. Customer is moved on AA, and now customer is basically providing consents for data sharing with the account aggregator. So next, what you are going to see right now is AA data plus the data that we collected on the form is being broadcasted to all the sellers in the application. And this is like a time wherein seller apps are running their policies to determine whether they are going to give an offer to the customer or not. So this is what it is. And after this, eventually we'll see the next journey wherein customer would be expecting an offer. See, this is an offer page where we can see that there are two seller apps. They have given an offer. Customer can sort the offers basis tenure amount as and when more sellers come in. At this page, once customer selects the particular offer as desired by them, then they customize the offer, like how much amount they would want. So post customization, the entire details are being displayed to the customer, like what is the rate of interest, what would be the EMI amount, what is the repayment frequency, and GRO details. All the loan related details are shown to the customer here. Now, what we are seeing right now here is that customer is providing the banking information where they are expecting the funds to be disbursed. So this is a transition which we should observe. Like from Tata New Pages, it has now moved to the lender platform for KYC. So right now the KYC is happening, and the good part is that it is transitioned from Tata New to the lender platform. So KYC is happening for the customer. Once KYC would be done, so you would see another transition which will come back to a buyer platform. So that's a seamless experience that's happening here. Another point to note here is that different lenders may have a different way of conducting KYC. This is an example from Aditya Birla Finance. Maybe if there is some other lender, they could have a different means of their KYC, but this will not impact a buyer who is particularly integrated in the platform. So that's a USP. So we see here from the KYC was done, then the seamless transition has happened. Now customer is moved on to set up a mandate. So the page that you are seeing right now is like customer is setting up the mandate. For every journey in the protocol, customer has to go through KYC and mandate setup process. there is again a transition from mandate to a terms and conditions. I would say that there is a limitation here, but that's again a USP of the product. I did not proceed ahead the TNCs where I get KFS sanction letter and everything, because if I proceed ahead, the loan will be disbursed immediately, as what we have been quoting here, that you get the loan within 6 minutes. So journey is even less than 6 minutes. The moment I would have put in OTP here, the funds would have been dispersed to me. So I have not moved ahead. I've just stopped it here. So this is the final step. This is the journey that we wanted to demonstrate. We have integrated with the ONDC. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Gulati. I would now like to invite Mr. Nilesh Halde, CPO, Pay Nearby, to the stage to take us through the next demonstration.
Good afternoon. Anand spoke about Pay Nearby. We are one of the leading agent network in the country. We operate in a B2B2C mode where we partner with local Kirana stores and equip them with various tools like we have a mobile interface, we have a web interface in 16 languages. And using this interface, our retailer dispenses services in his community, right? In assisted fashion. Lending is one area, and this use case, what we are presenting here, is retailer helping customer to get loan on ONDC platform. Video, please. Can you start again? Yeah. So we take the mobile number of the customer. Then the basic details are taken, which we have seen in Tata Capital case also. Tata Digital. The date of birth, contact details, address, gender, all the personal details are taken on the application. The purpose of the loan. Now the user is redirected to take consent for account aggregator. The bank is selected where the borrower holds account. The OTP is taken as in consent to give access to the account details. The consent has got approved and the details of the bank account are being fetched. Basis the bank account details and the information provided, business rule engine kicks in and the lenders gives their offers at this stage. The offers are getting generated from various vendors, lenders. We have got the offer from DMI Finance in this case. The details of the offer can be seen by the borrower. Once the offer is selected, customer is redirected to do the KYC. It starts with a picture. This is a live photo which is being taken. The next step is DigiLocker, from where the KYC documents are fetched. OTP has been received from UIDAI for authentication. Now, if you see on this screen, the documents on DigiLockers are shown and required documents are taken from there. There are certain checks are being run at this stage on lender's side, wherein the KYC name match, photo match, all these processes are happening at the back end. Borrower has to enter the account details where he wants to take the money. Once the bank details are captured, in the backend, penny drop happens, name check happens, so the account validation takes place. Then NACH mandate is taken, which is digital, either through debit card or net banking. We have just removed the bank page here because that was pretty, I mean, it was a private thing. So we have removed that part. Once the NACH mandate gets set, the borrower lender agreement gets generated. This is the borrower lender agreement. And this is e-signed through Aadhaar OTP. The agreement is signed and the amount is disbursed at this stage. If you see the entire flow, it's 100% digital. There was no document taken as such. The entire journey is digital, gets completed within around 6 to 7 minutes, and the funds gets disbursed into the account of the borrower. So that's the demo of Pay Nearby application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nilesh. I would now like to call upon stage Mr. Gaurav Agarwal, CPO, Paisa Bazaar. And may I request all of you to please stay with us as this session will be followed by a media Q&A.
Hi, thanks for having us here. Thanks for all of you to be here today. I represent Paisa Bazaar. We are India's largest marketplace for loans and cards. I, of course, lead the product and business functions for the unsecured lending business for the company. I just want to take a step back. I think the use cases that you saw are use cases very, very different in terms of being a marketplace for credit. Our core responsibility is to enable and enable credit and provide access to credit in the easiest fashion, right? Which is very different from, let's say, Tata Digital's experience of being a super app or a Pay Nearby of being a retailer app. So when the consumers come to us, they have a need in mind. They have a need of credit in mind very clearly, that they need money. And when they come to us, when we speak to consumers, when we hear consumers, what they ask us broadly 3 or 4 questions. Will I get a loan? Where will I get a loan from? How quickly can I get a loan? And then comes what is the offer? What is the price? And those are the consumer problems we are trying to solve over the last 10 years, that we've been aiming to solve, and solved it to a certain extent. And if you see these core consumer problems, they lead us to 2 or 3 important areas. One is, of course, expanding supply. How do you get more and more lenders on board to deal with more and more segment of consumers? The second bit is, how do you make it easy for the consumers to compare and advise him on what is right for him? And the third is, how do you build best processes? Once the consumer has selected an offer, how do you build the most easiest process to get him that credit easy and fast? So that is where I think the whole initiative kicks in for us. And those are the objectives, and we're very excited to work with the initiative for both these objectives, in terms of expanding supply and build great processes. And I think one of the words that was used in the morning was unification, which is, I think, which will help the ecosystem a lot, consumers a lot, and us a lot as well. And when consumers will win, all of us will win. That's the background I wanted to just give before I move on. We can start the video. So this is Paisa Bazaar. You can all access it. We run India's largest credit score program as well. This is near real time. So it's about 4 minute, 50-second video. Customer is authenticating himself through a mobile phone. We are generating the forms real time from all the lenders through the network. The consumer fills in. This is done by one of my colleagues. So we fill in so essentially the loan journey has 4 parts, right? There is information collation, there is assessment, there is diligence, and then there is the contracting part. I think this is the first part. We're trying to collect information about the customer. What does he do, his demogs, and where does he work, his annual income, official email address. So all this for a use case like an unsecured lending are the only collaterals you will have as a lender. We collect the address, where the customer stays today, because that'll be required for the collection use case later. So yeah, we take all the consents, and this is where we've taken consents for the bureau, and we try and get the income. And I think the beauty of the process is that while we're getting information, we're getting an information from an authentic source. So the lenders trust it fully, and they can, because it comes in a uniform format, you can assess it in a digital form. So you take the consents. This is where now the offers will get generated. This step will, of course, take some time. We're connecting with the lending partners. All of them are checking the bureau, checking the account aggregator information, trying to run their scorecards, coming back with the offer. So this is the offer from DMI Finance that the customer got. He can customize his loan amount. Getting to the loan details, he can check all the details of the dog, which is the KFS, as required from a regulatory perspective and consumer perspective. So this is now the diligence part has started, which is the KYC. So you click a photo. Yeah, and DigiLocker process that you've seen, again, as I said, the KYC information also coming from an authentic source. So there is no requirement in the physical world, the need for an OSV in that sense. Yeah. Yeah. This is he authenticates himself to get the Aadhaar details. Moves on. Yeah. So this is where the diligence part, we now collect the banking information. And as the presenter before me said, Once we collect the information, we'll do a penny drop to check for the applicant account, and the applicant is the same that he is mentioning. We set up the mandate. And if you see the process, and I think Sam from Tata Digital mentioned the same, that there are so many participants in the process. If you see, there is Paisabazaar, there is ONDC, there is a lender, there is an A network, there is a mandate service provider in that sense, there is DigiLocker. So all these participants are coming together as part of the network to provide the power to the consumer, which is the power we would love to harness. Yeah, this is the mandate has been set up. We can add that out. So now the last part of having the loan agreement generated, you sign it. This is the last step, which is the contracting piece. And you can go through the document, you can download the document, you verify, you sign this document via an Aadhaar OTP. Yeah. And you're done. So this is what happens. This is almost 4 minutes 50 seconds. So add a minute here and you're there. So it is really 6 minutes that we've seen. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you to the presenters and thank you all for your patience throughout this event. We have now almost reached towards the end of this event, but before we conclude, we'll have a quick Q&A session. For this, I would like to invite Mr. T. Koshi and Mr. Rishikesh Mehta to the stage. If you have any questions related to financial services, now is the best time to take it up. Please raise your hand and a microphone will be brought to you. Kindly state your name and affiliation before asking your question. Let's begin.
Yeah, hi, this is Santosh. I'm from Credit B. So we saw from all these demos, what I could see is that it's a very standard journey across all the buyer apps, right? Now, as a lender, if somebody is looking to offer, let's say, merchant loans and is looking for incremental information, let's say GST, ITR, so are the journeys customizable right now, or are there APIs around it, or how's that happening?
Yeah, so look, we've gone live with the first unsecured, which is a personal loan use case, and it can be done for individuals, or then it becomes a business loan if it's for sole proprietors. In the pipeline, so the next use case that goes live is a GST invoice seller financing use case. So what you're describing. We also have that same container can be used for any derived data. So with ShipRocket, we're talking about doing merchant financing with that transaction data. There's another app called Absolute, which we have crop yield data for farmer financing. So the beauty of the standard rails is there are containers for every type of use case. The lender can decide then whether they want to underwrite or not. So in the near future, we've already released the purchase financing use case, which is I want to buy just consumer durables, which could be your phone, whatever. We're also doing it for sole proprietors to buy like whatever goods or inputs that they want. We also actually today will release B2B credit, which is for working capital lines to partnerships and private limited. So what you see is the first evolution, the basic train track, so to speak, of the unsecured loans, and we will build more and more use cases on top of this. So our job is to create the whole suite of products and let the lender then decide where they want to participate. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes. Just an additional point. As a ONDC as a sort of entity, I'm sure there's a lot of transactional information which would be there. So when we decide to sort of start offering credit to merchants or sellers on the ONDC network, are we looking at enabling this transaction information to be shared with lenders, and in what fashion?
Right. So we don't store any of the transaction data. It is stored at the app where the user is transacting. So like take ShipRocket is a great example of who we are working with. They already have transaction information. With user consent, they will share that transaction information in a standardized format that we've created for them. So typically, what will it be? The vintage for how long they've been, the quality of delivery, the number of orders and the value of the orders accepted, delivered, and paid, and those sort of things. So happy to connect offline to go granular, but it's all there. I mean, we all lending operators who have come to the digital public good, so we understand, and we hope we've built the rails, and what we are seeing is we've built the rails as what the lenders expect. So we are happy to do whatever you want.
Just adding one dimension, which I'm sure that it is embedded in your answer, is that if you really look at in the simple transaction, you saw what AA is doing. What is AA doing? AA is saying that I'm getting the consent, I'm getting 3-4 kind of information with whom I have the integration. I believe that these kind of things will happen. One is that there'll be many more data providers. You heard somebody explaining Sujit explaining the stack, the agriculture stack that is coming, which is on the crop as well as land holding. So there is a effort that going on in the different parts of the country through the government, etc., to digitize many of these kind of information. Second thing is once it is digitized, the rails that Rishi was talking about will enable these kind of pulling. And one more dimension that could happen is the idea like the AA, like the RBIH, etc., would also come with intermediate solutions of managing consents and so that you don't need N-to-N integration that may become an essential requirement. But the key thing is more data source available. There could be consent framework that is coming that would help to pull in data without having end-to-end connections, and all this feeding onto lending decisions, which is data based and not opinion based.
Sure, go ahead.
Hi, so Rudra this side from Kotak. So I have a very small question, like established platform have a large user base globally. So changing a user base and their loyalty towards a task, it's a huge task from that perspective. So in that lane, so how do you define, like we have to give some compelling value proposition and like some user friendly or personalized offerings should be made. So in the same beacon protocol, so as it is standardized, so can that be tweaked later on?
One thing, I mean, I will add some and then you can add to that. Now let's look at the demand side. Demand side, there will be today in the open network, we are going to get a number of enterprises coming into managing the demand side, and many of them would also take up the position of managing the demand for credit or managing for other one. But their focus and attention is to their consumers because they have no conflict of interest with the suppliers, which is financial product, let's say lenders. So now, what does a protocol say? Protocol say how should the consumer application, the buyer application, the borrower application, the interface with the demand side should communicate to the information from the supplier side. That is about the transaction information. But how the information is rendered and made it available to the consumers is left to the the ingenuity and innovation of the buying platform. So we would see a lot more innovation and curation and smart way of making this information available, marrying third-party information together to help the buyer to make the right decision. All this will happen. That's the whole beauty of an open network because it will drive innovation in the way the consumers are dealt with. But the standardization is only how each of them communicate on business critical information. So that way you would see standardization helping interoperability and unbundling helping innovation and specialization.
So just to add, like, look, you ask about customization. The protocol is built in a way that you can use it the way you want as a lender. So for example, if it's an existing customer, don't do KYC. If it's a small ticket loan, do only Aadhaar OTP. If it's a large ticket loan, do VKYC if you need to. If you need to do in-person verification, which, up over 10 lakhs, and I'm sure like each lender has its own policies. See, the idea of this standardization is counterintuitive. It's like, look, the regulations are the same, interpretations may vary, but what we did is put in rails with enough flexibility that you can, but which are regulation compliant, which you can do what you need to do without being too prescriptive, but also standardized. Because see, you go to the large payment apps, and I won't name them, everyone will force, like if you're a small lender, they'll force their opinion on you. If you're a large lender, there's a negotiation. If you're even larger than them, then they will just do what you want. Why? When the regulations are the same, when the process is the same, why can't it be the same process? What it also does, like we've also, some of the apps put powered by ONDC. What it does is it takes away the issue of trust because it's going to be powered by now. Like we obviously vet everyone and put them out there. Now, what this does is, see, today you have all these some loan apps which do all sorts of crazy things like don't show costs and disburse 20% less than what those are the processing fees, etc. We can help do away with that, right? So there's standardization to an extent. There's room to wiggle. There are containers for different data for different use cases. So we've built the protocol where, again, like I think Credit B asked that question. You participate where you want to. You use the protocol as a tool to do as much or as little as you want to. So it's standard, but also with enough room to meet your needs.
Probably you could also share with them your roadmap of how you plan to add more and more nuance to it.
So look, we have unsecured personal loans. GST seller financing is the first alternative data use case. Absolute, the crop yield financing, ship rocket merchant financing. We're talking to Stellapps for cow financing. I mean, personally, that's the case. That will be the hardest one to do, and I hope we can, in the next 6 months, deploy that. Purchase financing and B2B credit for working capital lines. And I mean, post that, we'll even bring credit cards. Now, after that, that's the full suite of products. I mean, if you're able to deploy all these in the next year or 18 months, you'll have the full suite of credit on ONDC. Sure.
Hi, hi Tikoshi sir, hi Rishi. Thanks a lot. I think ONDC has been a platform. I'm Aman. I'm a co-founder of Clean 360. We are live as a buyer application for credit and insurance on ONDC. And the question that I have is from a personal experience that we've had while talking to nano entrepreneurs from Bharat, tier 2, tier 3 people. In India, it is said that 1 million people or the first 10 million who have access to credit, there's a lot of option available. But then this population, this Janta, either they are new to credit or somehow their credit score is not up to the mark. And I think Nitin sir talked well that it has to be a responsible lending from the lender's end as well. This customer with new to credit, is there something that ONDC can do for them so that they can have some sort of either a buffer from the lender's end to underwrite this customer somehow so that they can be brought into a formal credit cycle? Because that is what we have seen as a challenge, which is, I mean, them not having access to credit and not being underwritten.
So look, there are I think three elements. And, we have played some part in pushing all. So one, we haven't started yet is maybe a discussion with the RBI to do like the mutual fund Sahi Hai campaign to educate people. Take a loan, but like in the microfinance days, like, and I've done the route walks with some of the microfinance in the slums and in the villages, and like they have to keep saying lena hai to dena bhi hai, ek grant nahi hai. So that is one, and that you pay interest. There has to be some education of what it is, where you can get it, the whole application process. Even familiarity with account aggregator is not there. So actually with the press, I would request you all to write more about account aggregator, because people still are not fully aware of it. Now, that is one element. So it's a question of education. You also have a part to play there, because you are the distribution side. So you have enough content, enough explanations to customers to do that. The second piece is a credit guarantee, is what you're talking about. That is close to in the works to have a sovereign guarantee, because RBI has clamped down on the first loan default guarantee. So we've gone to CHTMSE, and hopefully, it'll come for new to credit. They are going to provide a credit guarantee. And the last one is look for new to credit or thin files to create track. They get very expensive loans because lenders don't know how to underwrite the risk, which is fair because there's no track record. So they're also going to provide an MSME interest subvention in the near future. So there is the total. So education, we can create the supply and the rails and enable you to put it in front of the customer. You need to educate as well. We talk to the RBI now on how we can go about doing that. You provide cover to the lender, and you provide a discount to the borrower so that they can create track record. And that is, when I was talking earlier about creating the ecosystem or the marketplace for the future, these are the things we need to do to make the market for the new to credit and the thin file cases. I hope that answers your question.
Makes sense. Thanks, sir.
Hi, this is Neerav, co-founder at Ignosis. Question from me is more on the deposits. There's a lot of push from RBI on increasing the deposits from the bank side. So is there a role ONDC is planning to play on that? Is there a product offering coming up?
See, look, very clearly, the Jan Dhan Yojana created access to banking and banking services for like the Jan Dhan. It's a well-known story. What remains unserved is credit. What remains unserved is insurance. What remains unserved is mutual funds. There is no point us solving for something which is already solved for, in our opinion. I want to solve for something like, so for example, right? We have not built this infrastructure for people in cities like you and me who get phone calls to get credit. We have built this infrastructure so it goes to tier 2, tier 3 cities, to farmers, agri areas. So if it benefits us, and I get a loan in 6 minutes, I'm happy. But we're not solving for us. We're solving for those who don't get products. And for example, and this is another view, but fixed deposits are good, yes, for the banking system. But in terms of a sheer wealth building product, and we've talked with a couple of the regulators and all about this, is the really wealth building products are equity mutual funds. And yes, there's an issue, the whole mutual fund Sahi Hai campaign, and these fluctuate, but they build wealth you can retire on. With all due respect, FDs don't even match up to the CPI, right? So they're good and they're safe, but so are liquid funds with short-term papers. So why can't those and, deepen the capital market there, and with equity which generates real wealth and the ability to retire off your own money and not, depend on handouts. Long answer to a short question, but does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I think last question and we're out of time.
Understand that I personally have 5 bank accounts and I'm pre-approved with each of the bank accounts, but I don't know my offer. And typically if I come on Tata Neo app and if ONDC as a platform helps me gather all these pre-approved informations upfront, instead of me coming in the journey and then exploring and getting in offers, if I upfront know that I have an offer of 5 lakh from SDFC, say a 10 lakh from a Kotak or a 4 lakh from Axis, or say a 3 lakh from a Bajaj Finance also, it helps me nudge a customer better and
Right.
promote a service.
Yeah, but so our core principle is democratization, not only for the user, but also for the participants. So for example, and I know there was HDFC, the crowd, but I think they've gone now. But whether you have HDFC with 70 million or 60 million bank account, CASA customers, or ICICI Bank, Axis, SBI, all have like huge bases. And yes, they've onboarded customers, but they don't underwrite to everybody. Now, you have to give an equal opportunity to all lenders to underwrite, right? that is our core principle. That's democratization. Otherwise, you're back to the special relationships. And like if you have, say, like a five actually who are on here, they're like challengers if you think about it in the ecosystem. What this does is take away those special relationships and gives them an equal seat at the table to underwrite to someone who the bank may or may not. You're talking about pre-approved cases, but why wouldn't I give everyone an equal opportunity to underwrite? What if ICICI Bank is giving you a better offer than HDFC Bank? So the idea is democratization, and that core principle we are like unbudgeable on. We don't want to create special relationships all over again.
Not a special relationship, but for a buyer app like us. So when we have a traffic, we have a million plus customer daily browsing us. Not for me to promote a use case for lending only, and not promoting other use cases. We have 34 categories on an app. But if I have a nudge of a customer that you are pre-approved customer, and you get a loan in 10 seconds, vis-a-vis a 6 minutes when you have to come and do an account aggregator.
So you're welcome to do that bilaterally. I mean, honestly, bluntly, see, because the idea is otherwise someone who's dominant stays dominant. We are trying to level the playing field.
Sure.
And give everyone, honestly, what took 2 weeks and a rejection, we made 6 minutes. Like if HDFC Bank gives a loan in 10 seconds, if you're an existing customer, but if you choose not to look elsewhere, but again, those are not the guys we want to serve because they're like guys like you and me, where you have assets, you have a credit history, you've been in the formal system for a very long time. How am I going to help you? Okay, I think we are out of time. Rachita has slammed the hammer. So thank you. I mean, if we are around, if anyone has any questions, happy to take them.
Thank you, Rishikesh. Thank you, Koshi. We appreciate your time and patience towards this event. Before we wrap up, can we please have a huge round of applause for everybody for their participation and contribution towards this initiative? We hope you share your experience of today's event with us on social media. If you do, please use the hashtag ONDC Financial Launch. You are now cordially invited to join us for lunch. We hope you enjoy the meal and continue networking. Thank you once again.
मेरा नाम प्रिंस ओम है, मेरी दुकान है और मैं मुजफ्फरनगर जिले का रहने वाला हूं। मैंने पे नियर बाय ऐप से ओएनडीसी का लोन अप्लाइड किया था और मुझे कुछ डॉक्यूमेंट्स नहीं लगाना पड़ा और मेरा सैंक्शन लेटर तुरंत आ गया।
हाय, माय नेम इज़ शुभम देवकुले। रिसेंटली मुझे पैसों की ज़रूरत थी तो आई वाज लुकिंग फॉर लाइक लोन एप्लीकेशंस एंड ऑल दिस ऑन गूगल्स एंड प्ले स्टोर्स। तो आई केम अक्रॉस टू दिस प्लेटफॉर्म ईजी पे। वहाँ से मुझे काफ़ी जल्दी रिस्पांस मिला, सारे प्रोसीजर फास्ट हुए, जबकि बाकी के लाइक जहाँ पर मैंने अप्लाई किया था वहाँ पर काफ़ी स्लो रिस्पांस मिल रहा था। सो दैट वाज गुड एंड तुरंत ही लाइक between 8 hours I got the money in my account. So thank you for helping me out. Thank you so much.
मेरा नाम बामा, मैं इजी पे का कस्टमर हूँ। एक दिन मुझे कॉल आ गया, एक लोन रिलेटेड नया प्लेटफॉर्म हुआ। मैंने एक लोन के लिए प्रोसेस किया और मैंने जैसे जर्नी स्टार्ट की कंप्लीट किया और मुझे लोन मिल गया। मैं अभी
हेलो नमस्ते, मैं ईजी पे का कस्टमर हूँ और ईजी पे से बहुत सारी मैंने फैसिलिटी पहले भी लिया हुआ है। तो अभी मैं जैसा बता दूँ आपको, मुझे लोन की रिक्वायरमेंट थी, ज़रूरत थी, तो ईजी पे में बहुत आसानी से लोन मिल जाता है। जैसे कि ईजी पे में एक ओएनडीसी प्लेटफॉर्म था, उस प्लेटफॉर्म के तहत मैंने लोन का प्रोसेस किया है। और ये लोन का प्रोसेस कैसे होता है, फर्स्ट टाइम तो सबसे पहले वहाँ से कॉल आता है। कॉल में बताया जाता है कि आपके लिए ये लोन का ऑफर है, और फिर उसके पास जो प्रोसेस होता है पूरा डिजिटल होता है, खुद से करना रहता है। और मैंने किया, और जैसे ही मैंने प्रोसेस पूरा किया उसके कुछ ही टाइम के बाद मेरे अकाउंट में पूरे अमाउंट डिस्बर्स कर दिया गया। तो जो भी लोन का प्रोसेस होता है बहुत ईजी होता है, बहुत अच्छा होता है, और आगे चल के अगर ये बड़ा अमाउंट लेना रहेगा तो आगे चल के इसका बहुत अच्छा बेनिफिट मुझे मिलेगा। तो मैं बता दूं, ईजी पे से जो भी लोन मिल रहा है बहुत बेस्ट है।
मेरा नाम प्रिंस सोम है, मेरी दुकान है और मैं मुजफ्फरनगर जिले का रहने वाला हूँ। मैंने पे नियर बाई ऐप से ONDC का लोन अप्लाइड किया था और मुझे कुछ डॉक्यूमेंट्स नहीं लगाना पड़ा और मेरा सैंक्शन लेटर तुरंत आ गया।
हाय, माय नेम इज़ शुभम देवकुले। रिसेंटली मुझे पैसों की ज़रूरत थी, तो आई वाज लुकिंग फॉर लाइक लोन एप्लीकेशंस एंड ऑल दिस ऑन गूगल्स एंड प्ले स्टोर्स। तो आई केम अक्रॉस टू दिस प्लेटफॉर्म ईजी पे। वहाँ से मुझे काफ़ी जल्दी रिस्पांस मिला, सारे प्रोसीजर फास्ट हुए, जबकि बाकी के लाइक जहाँ पर मैंने अप्लाई किया था वहाँ पर काफ़ी स्लो रिस्पांस मिल रहा था। सो दैट वाज गुड, एंड तुरंत ही लाइक between 8 hours I got the money in my account. So thank you for helping me out. Thank you so much.
मेरा नाम बामा, मैं इजी पे का कस्टमर हूँ। एक दिन मुझे कॉल आ गया, एक लोन रिलेटेड नया प्लेटफॉर्म हुआ। मैंने एक लोन के लिए प्रोसेस किया, और मैंने जैसे जर्नी स्टार्ट कंप्लीट किया और मुझे लोन मिल गया। मैं अभी
हेलो नमस्ते, मैं ईजी पे का कस्टमर हूँ और ईजी पे से बहुत सारी मैंने फैसिलिटी पहले भी लिया हुआ है। तो अभी मैं जैसा बता दूँ आपको, मुझे लोन की रिक्वायरमेंट थी, ज़रूरत थी, तो ईजी पे में बहुत आसानी से लोन मिल जाता है। जैसे कि ईजी पे में एक ONDC प्लेटफॉर्म था, उस प्लेटफॉर्म के तहत मैंने लोन का प्रोसेस किया है। और ये लोन का प्रोसेस कैसे होता है, फर्स्ट टाइम तो सबसे पहले वहाँ से कॉल आता है, कॉल में बताया जाता है कि आपके लिए ये लोन का ऑफ़र है, और फिर उसके पास जो प्रोसेस होता है पूरा डिजिटल होता है, खुद से करना रहता है। और मैंने किया, और जैसे ही मैंने प्रोसेस पूरा किया उसके कुछ ही टाइम के बाद मेरे अकाउंट में पूरे अमाउंट डिस्बर्स कर दिया गया। तो जो भी लोन का प्रोसेस होता है बहुत ईजी होता है, बहुत अच्छा होता है, और आगे चल के अगर ये बड़ा अमाउंट लेना रहेगा तो आगे चल के इसका बहुत अच्छा बेनिफिट मुझे मिलेगा। तो मैं बता दूं, ईजी पे से जो भी लोन मिल रहा है बहुत बेस्ट है।
मेरा नाम प्रिंस सोम है, मेरी दुकान है और मैं मुजफ्फरनगर जिले का रहने वाला हूँ। मैंने पे नियर बाई ऐप से ONDC का लोन अप्लाइड किया था और मुझे कुछ डॉक्यूमेंट्स नहीं लगाना पड़ा और मेरा सैंक्शन लेटर तुरंत आ गया।
हाय, माय नेम इज़ शुभम देवकुले। रिसेंटली मुझे पैसों की ज़रूरत थी, तो आई वाज लुकिंग फॉर लाइक लोन एप्लीकेशंस एंड ऑल दिस ऑन गूगल्स एंड प्ले स्टोर्स। तो आई केम अक्रॉस टू दिस प्लेटफॉर्म ईजी पे। वहाँ से मुझे काफ़ी जल्दी रिस्पांस मिला, सारे प्रोसीजर फास्ट हुए, जबकि बाकी के लाइक जहाँ पर मैंने अप्लाई किया था वहाँ पर काफ़ी स्लो रिस्पांस मिल रहा था। सो दैट वाज गुड, एंड तुरंत ही लाइक between 8 hours I got the money in my account. So thank you for helping me out. Thank you so much.
मेरा नाम बामा, मैं इजी पे का कस्टमर हूँ। एक दिन मुझे कॉल आ गया, एक लोन रिलेटेड नया प्लेटफॉर्म हुआ। मैंने एक लोन के लिए प्रोसेस किया, और मैंने जैसे जर्नी स्टार्ट कंप्लीट किया और मुझे लोन मिल गया। मैं अभी
हेलो नमस्ते, मैं ईजी पे का कस्टमर हूँ और ईजी पे से बहुत सारी मैंने फैसिलिटी पहले भी लिया हुआ है। तो अभी मैं जैसा बता दूँ आपको, मुझे लोन की रिक्वायरमेंट थी, ज़रूरत थी, तो ईजी पे में बहुत आसानी से लोन मिल जाता है। जैसे कि ईजी पे में एक ONDC प्लेटफॉर्म था, उस प्लेटफॉर्म के तहत मैंने लोन का प्रोसेस किया है। और ये लोन का प्रोसेस कैसे होता है, फर्स्ट टाइम तो सबसे पहले वहाँ से कॉल आता है, कॉल में बताया जाता है कि आपके लिए ये लोन का ऑफ़र है, और फिर उसके पास जो प्रोसेस होता है पूरा डिजिटल होता है, खुद से करना रहता है। और मैंने किया, और जैसे ही मैंने प्रोसेस पूरा किया उसके कुछ ही टाइम के बाद मेरे अकाउंट में पूरे अमाउंट डिस्बर्स कर दिया गया। तो जो भी लोन का प्रोसेस होता है बहुत ईजी होता है, बहुत अच्छा होता है, और आगे चल के अगर ये बड़ा अमाउंट लेना रहेगा तो आगे चल के इसका बहुत अच्छा बेनिफिट मुझे मिलेगा। तो मैं बता दूं, ईजी पे से जो भी लोन मिल रहा है बहुत बेस्ट है।
मेरा नाम प्रिंस सोम है, मेरी दुकान है और मैं मुजफ्फरनगर जिले का रहने वाला हूँ। मैंने पे नियर बाई ऐप से ONDC का लोन अप्लाइड किया था और मुझे कुछ डॉक्यूमेंट्स नहीं लगाना पड़ा और मेरा सैंक्शन लेटर तुरंत आ गया।
हाय माय नेम इज़ शुभम देवकुले। रिसेंटली मुझे पैसों की ज़रूरत थी तो आई वाज लुकिंग फॉर लाइक लोन एप्लीकेशंस एंड ऑल दिस ऑन गूगल्स एंड प्ले स्टोर्स। तो आई केम अक्रॉस टू दिस प्लेटफॉर्म ईजी पे। वहाँ से मुझे काफ़ी जल्दी रिस्पांस मिला, सारे प्रोसीजर फास्ट हुए, जबकि बाकी के लाइक जहाँ पर मैंने अप्लाई किया था वहाँ पर काफ़ी स्लो रिस्पांस मिल रहा था। सो दैट वाज गुड एंड तुरंत ही लाइक between 8 hours I got the money in my account. So thank you for helping me out. Thank you so much.
मेरा नाम बामा, मैं इजी पे का कस्टमर हूँ। एक दिन मुझे कॉल आ गया, एक लोन रिलेटेड नया प्लेटफॉर्म हुआ। मैंने एक लोन के लिए प्रोसेस किया और मैंने जैसे जर्नी स्टार्ट की कंप्लीट किया और मुझे लोन मिल गया। मैं अभी
हेलो नमस्ते, मैं ईजी पे का कस्टमर हूँ और ईजी पे से बहुत सारी मैंने फैसिलिटी पहले भी लिया हुआ है। तो अभी मैं जैसा बता दूँ आपको, मुझे लोन की रिक्वायरमेंट थी, ज़रूरत थी। तो ईजी पे में बहुत आसानी से लोन मिल जाता है। जैसे कि ईजी पे में एक ONDC प्लेटफॉर्म था, उस प्लेटफॉर्म के तहत मैंने लोन का प्रोसेस किया है। और ये लोन का प्रोसेस कैसे होता है, फर्स्ट टाइम तो सबसे पहले वहाँ से कॉल आता है। कॉल में बताया जाता है कि आपके लिए ये लोन का ऑफ़र है, और फिर उसके पास जो प्रोसेस होता है पूरा डिजिटल होता है, खुद से करना रहता है। और मैंने किया, और जैसे ही मैंने प्रोसेस पूरा किया उसके कुछ ही टाइम के बाद मेरे अकाउंट में पूरे अमाउंट डिस्बर्स कर दिया गया। तो जो भी लोन का प्रोसेस होता है बहुत इजी होता है, बहुत अच्छा होता है। और आगे चल के अगर ये बड़ा अमाउंट लेना रहेगा तो आगे चल के इसका बहुत अच्छा बेनिफिट मुझे मिलेगा। तो मैं बता दूं, ईजी पे से जो भी लोन मिल रहा है बहुत बेस्ट है।
मेरा नाम प्रिंस सोम है, मेरी दुकान है और मैं मुजफ्फरनगर जिले का रहने वाला हूँ। मैंने पे नियर बाई ऐप से ONDC का लोन अप्लाइड किया था और मुझे कुछ डॉक्यूमेंट्स नहीं लगाना पड़ा और मेरा सैंक्शन लेटर तुरंत आ गया।
हाय माय नेम इज़ शुभम देवकुले। रिसेंटली मुझे पैसों की ज़रूरत थी तो आई वाज लुकिंग फॉर लाइक लोन एप्लीकेशंस एंड ऑल दिस ऑन गूगल्स एंड प्ले स्टोर्स। तो आई केम अक्रॉस टू दिस प्लेटफॉर्म ईजी पे। वहाँ से मुझे काफ़ी जल्दी रिस्पांस मिला, सारे प्रोसीजर फास्ट हुए, जबकि बाकी के लाइक जहाँ पर मैंने अप्लाई किया था वहाँ पर काफ़ी स्लो रिस्पांस मिल रहा था। सो दैट वाज गुड एंड तुरंत ही लाइक between 8 hours I got the money in my account. So thank you for helping me out. Thank you so much.
मेरा नाम बामा, मैं इजी पे का कस्टमर हूँ। एक दिन मुझे कॉल आ गया, एक लोन रिलेटेड नया प्लेटफॉर्म हुआ। मैंने एक लोन के लिए प्रोसेस किया और मैंने जैसे जर्नी स्टार्ट की कंप्लीट किया और मुझे लोन मिल गया। मैं अभी
हेलो नमस्ते, मैं ईजी पे का कस्टमर हूँ और ईजी पे से बहुत सारी मैंने फैसिलिटी पहले भी लिया हुआ है। तो अभी मैं जैसा बता दूँ आपको, मुझे लोन की रिक्वायरमेंट थी, ज़रूरत थी। तो ईजी पे में बहुत आसानी से लोन मिल जाता है। जैसे कि ईजी पे में एक ONDC प्लेटफॉर्म था, उस प्लेटफॉर्म के तहत मैंने लोन का प्रोसेस किया है। और ये लोन का प्रोसेस कैसे होता है, फर्स्ट टाइम तो सबसे पहले वहाँ से कॉल आता है। कॉल में बताया जाता है कि आपके लिए ये लोन का ऑफ़र है, और फिर उसके पास जो प्रोसेस होता है पूरा डिजिटल होता है, खुद से करना रहता है। और मैंने किया, और जैसे ही मैंने प्रोसेस पूरा किया उसके कुछ ही टाइम के बाद मेरे अकाउंट में पूरे अमाउंट डिस्बर्स कर दिया गया। तो जो भी लोन का प्रोसेस होता है बहुत इजी होता है, बहुत अच्छा होता है। और आगे चल के अगर ये बड़ा अमाउंट लेना रहेगा तो आगे चल के इसका बहुत अच्छा बेनिफिट मुझे मिलेगा। तो मैं बता दूं, ईजी पे से जो भी लोन मिल रहा है बहुत बेस्ट है।